righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, April 16, 2019. If you'd all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the warrants. So motion to approve payroll warrant 19-41, the amount of $154,312.82.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Motion to approve bill warrant 19-41 in the amount of $1,069,499.16, which breaks down as follows. Town, $84,095.46. Water sewer, $33,927.84. Payroll withholding, $17,707.10. Health insurance, $32,986. Light bills, $94,621.27. Grants and revolving, $11,188.83. And Pawtucket assessment, $794,972.66.
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Terrific. Moving right along, we have the appointment of Robert Paulizotti. I was going to get there. 41 School Street, Groveland, to the position of seasonal grounds keeper at the cemetery. The appointment is effective April 17, 2019, at an hourly rate of $15 per hour through November 2019.
The chair of the cemetery commission's here if you'd like to ask him any questions.
Sure, Brock, if you'd like to. I mean, this is just a seasonal thing. You hire someone every
That's
spring
correct.
for
We went
that
out to-
through the fall.
We sent it out, and Bob came back and said he would like to have the job again. He did a good job for us and helped us out, and we didn't have anybody, and he knows the cemetery, knows what he has to do, so he can be left unsupervised, and so we voted last week to reappoint him after your approval.
Bless you.
I'll make the motion that we appoint Bob Paulizotti, seasonal groundskeeper at the cemetery, effective April 17, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Terrific. Congratulations. Thank you, Robert. Here we have the appointment of Brad Legals, 16 Evergreen Lane, Groveland, as an associate member of the planning board through June 30th, 2019. I see that Mr. Legals is not here. I don't know if that makes too much of a difference, I guess.
I'll make the motion we appoint Brad Legals as an associate member of planning board. He seems like he's interested and he'd be an asset.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the issue? Yes.
I know Brad has several interests, commercial interests, private interests in town. I just want to make sure that he can recuse himself from discussions that he would be beneficial and part of, as part of his own private business side. Other than that, I have no other problems with it.
So I do know he had that conversation with our town planner, and yes, he plans to recuse himself from any matter that he is in a butter to or pertains to him.
That's all.
So, seeing as there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Yes.
Terrific. Moving on to discussion and possible votes. We have Rebecca Oldham, town planner, to present proposal for zoning administrator position. As I like to call you, Miss Mona Lisa Vito of Town Planning.
Rebecca Oldham, Town Planner. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I am here to make a proposal that the town planner undertake the responsibilities of the zoning board of appeals clerk and create the town planner / zoning administrator position. There's a lot of overlap between what we do on the planning board and the zoning board, and I believe that this would make it a more efficient and effective use of a position. Additionally, we can consolidate resources and expenses and essentially provide a greater level of service to the residents. They do not have a dedicated staff person here at Town Hall, which makes it very difficult for those who are seeking permits and approvals from their board. So this would allow them to have a dedicated staff member here, full-time, 5 days a week, and they can call and ask any questions, and we can walk them through the application process, et cetera. So I believe it will improve coordination and communication to the residents. So at the current time, the clerk's position is vacant. So I believe that this would be an ideal opportunity to combine the role or absorb the role and make it more efficient.
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
How are we gonna fund it?
From my understanding, the position is currently being funded from a revolving account based upon the application fees that are taken in. And they also, I believe, have a expenditure item line as well.
Okay, and, would that person be someone, an outsider, or someone like you that is already here and you're gonna add a role to your?
That would be me. I would absorb all of the responsibilities of the clerk position as the town planner.
Okay. All right.
Any
So,
other-
so two things. You have a letter in your packet from the building inspector,
Mm-hmm.
and Kathy, who's the co-chair of the zoning board, is here as well, if you'd like to speak with her on that.
I've read the letter from Sam. I have no further questions. I have tremendous confidence in your abilities. I think you've proven that in the short time you've been here. So anything that you feel you can add value to the town, I'm firmly convinced that you can do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, I read through the documents and the letters. Bill has my thoughts and process, how you're gonna fund it, but as long as it's a net zero to the line items, then I have no problem. It seems like a good, efficient way to use
Yeah,
resources.
there's additional expenses now that are not exactly what you would want. There's expenses, reimbursements for office supplies
Right.
and mileage and other types of things that you wouldn't have, well, if I took over the role.
Okay, yeah, no, it makes sense.
No, it seems like it makes sense to me. The town plan will be at all the meetings anyway, so it probably something we probably should have thought of originally. Thank you.
And that's why we hired you, isn't it? Would someone like to make a motion toward that goal?
I'll make a motion that we, how we say this?
Accept the proposal.
Except,
Accept the proposal from Rebecca Olden, town planner, for a zoning administrator position.
Seconded.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Okay, next on the agenda, we have Dr. Justin Bartholomew to discuss the proposed middle high school project. Absolutely, wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you need to be. Thank you for coming. I know this is a very important topic for a lot of folks. I appreciate you coming and taking the time out of your day to help all of us understand as much of it as we need to make the most informed decision we can.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time, and, I think this is a presentation. I hope you have a little bit of time. And since there's only a few people here, feel free to ask whatever questions that you might think the constituency might have. Obviously, I think this first slide here kind of puts out everything pretty nicely of kind of what the journey's been. And the reason why it's important to ask questions is because, of course, it is April the 16th, and we are 13 days away from the town meeting where the first vote takes place. So people knowing what's going on is really important. So overall, the history of this, 4 years ago, Pentucket was allowed into the MSBA process. And prior to that process, the only other time, 1999, and that was the high school project in Merrimack. Since then, we've been applying to get involved in the process, but we've not had success. So the reason why we've had success this time is because they actually have an independent assessment done. In that independent assessment, it was clear that our facility was struggling with our infrastructure in particular. So what we ended up seeing was we got allowed into the process in February of 2015. That was 4 years ago, and the reason why that's important is because it won't be until August of 2022 when the students go into the building. So the point of entering into the process to the point of the building being completed is 7 years. And in addition to that, if the MSBA, if this vote does not go through, the MSBA is not going to let us in next year or the year after. It's going to be a long wait. It's already been 20 years for them to let us sit and think about it. So that's kind of where we are. So 4 years ago, we were allowed in this summer, and we showed the communities, here's the 8 different options we have. Here's the repair only, here's a reno only, here's a new high school, and then here's some 712 options. And the 712 options were actually something that the MSBA suggested we do, because they looked at it from a smart standpoint. This is what they do. And they said, hey, if you go ahead and you build a high school now, you're going to come back to us and your taxpayers 10 years from now, and you're going to ask for another middle school as well. That's going to be extremely expensive, far more expensive than you just combine the two. So we had those conversations. We put together a vision. There were vision sessions that happened for 3 years to come up with these 8 models. And then overwhelmingly, what was called the Courtyard 712 model was the model that people wanted. It separates out the middle school and the high school, and it gets enough space for all the students that we have in our district. So that happened this summer. In the fall, the MSBA accepted our proposal, and then in February, that's when we received the 2 assessments, 2 new estimates on what the project would cost. In the summer, we had this number flying around $155.4 million, and that was an assessment that was based on guesses. We didn't have any details. In February, we had 1/5 of the work was done, so we knew kind of what the details were going to be. So we went ahead and we had the 2 independent folks came in, did it, and they had an updated of $146.3 million, which is the price that we had in last week when we were in Boston. $146.3 million is the cost of the project. Now, what I can know right now, because we just got this information, was $52.7 million of that is going to be a grant that comes from the state. So we do not have to pay for $52.7 million, and that's a bare minimum. There's the potential that we end up with just over $54 million in a grant from the state. So this is with the partnership of the state. So we play by their rules, and they're actually very, very good rules. They make you go through a lot of different steps that are necessary. But if we were to do this on our own, it wouldn't be cheaper than the 146.3. We would have to pay the 3 towns the entire 146.3 million. So for me, I'm very grateful that the MSBA has allowed us in this partnership and that we have this opportunity, because that is a whole boatload of money. So then, of course, the next step, where we're going to go, like I said, April 29th is town meetings, and then the following Monday, if everything passes on all 3, the following Monday it goes on the ballot for voters to vote yes or no. So big question, why are we even to this point? And can I move on? Why are we even to this point? So here's just, this entire presentation used to have a lot more words. I just switched to pictures. It makes a lot more sense. We had tours done all last week. We had 3 different nights, 3 different days of tours, 2 at 3:15 and 4 o'clock, and then 2 others 6 o'clock. And we took people around to a lot of the rooms. This room had, I think, the biggest impression on folks. So you can see here, this is 13,000 volts coming in to what's called the vault. And the vault has blast doors. This is new power that came in because there was an explosion underneath the guidance office. No one was in the building. And there was an electric explosion under the guidance office. This is all severely antiquated. Mr. Roberts, who was a Groveland resident, he had come to take a look at this because he was in a part of a panel that talked about what he saw, and I never realized this, but it turned out he worked for General Electric, and he said he's seen buildings from the 40s, 50s, all the way up through. And even in the 50s, this was built in 56, even in the 50s, this was a horrible design. You should never have this kind of power running through your building. Right next to this, there's panels, electric panels on the outside, on the other side of these concrete walls, and also in this room, it's all of our heating system, which is steam. So that, of course, leaks constantly. And Mr. Seymour always loves telling a story of, came in one day, it was about 6:30, and his room was full of steam. So he came down here and it was like a sauna, and all the water was leaking out underneath the doors. And there's blast doors here, and there's also blast doors on the outside of the apparatus room. So it's just a nightmare for disaster. And you put all those together, and there's a nice big pipe of natural gas that flows through that same exact room. Our outlets, if this is in your house, and it might be, this is no longer to code. And when you touch this fabric, it just falls apart in your fingers. And of course, that's insulation is what prevents the wires from causing a fire. I say this often. You can't make these pictures up. This is again in the same apparatus room. This is not an exception. Every single one of these valves looks this way, and this is part of our heating system. Again, it's the steam heat. It's cast iron pipes with water coming through. Here, what we've got is a valve. We're not allowed to touch these. We're not allowed to touch these because if we do, they'll break, and you have to start going to look for the next part of pipe where that you can connect to. And that might be 16 feet, it might be 16 inches. It all depends. But it's completely, corrosion is all the way through. And obviously, every year it gets worse. But you can see Tochi and Associates right here. This is from their report. There were imminent danger of possible failure, and that would result in a large portion of the building being without heat. The HVAC system is our Achilles heel, and that's combined with the plumbing. All the cast iron's 1956. When it comes in through into the building, that is just years and years and years of corrosion. So you might have had 12-inch pipes, 10-inch pipes. They're not 10-inch smooth anymore. Those are cut down. That adds additional pressures and strain on the system. One of the big questions we get asked is, why can't you just fix the HVAC? And we'll get to that question. The answer is we can't. It's too expensive. It's not that it's too expensive for the taxpayers. It puts us over a limit that we can't cross without doing everything in the building to bring it up to code for accessibility. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But these are commonplace. Here's some more. And these are more plumbing pieces. This right here was the main water line that came from West Newbury into the high school. That was the main water supply. That was, I think it was a football, it was the Super Bowl Sunday in February. All of a sudden there appeared on 113 a big, huge speed bump that unfortunately a patrolman had gone over and his coffee went flying, is how the story goes. But what ends up happening is that this pipe ruptured, froze, and it caused a frost heave. These pipes rupture all the time. And just as evidence of that, in January this year, I had Bob Danforth came by. He's one of our maintenance folks. He stopped by and said, "Hey, I need to see you. You need to come with me." So I got in his car and we went down to in front of the junior high. And in front of there on 113, there was just it looked like a natural string just bubbling up underneath from the ground. And I said, "Well, that doesn't look good." And he said, "Yeah, that's not good." I said, "Next question, is that us or is that Groveland?" He said, "I don't know yet." So they had they came up, dug the hole. We're good at digging holes. We're good at finding these pipes. We were able to repair that one. This one, we were not able to repair. Fortunately, the people who designed the high school and the middle school were very smart, and they built a little junction station across the street. So they were able to shut off West Newbury's water, and now we're on Groveland's water. And also, the impact this had was there's a fire hydrant over by the football field which no longer functions, and there's no water access to the field. There's another fire hydrant on the other side of the football field, so that's good. We're compliant there. But they have to run a hose, a regular garden hose. They hook up to the school, and they run it over the top of the school, and then they zip tie it along the chain link fence to go to the snack house so that they can serve food, because without water, you cannot do that. So here's another one of our wonderful water. This right here, this bottom picture, water was pouring out under here. We had someone on patrol who had come up through and went through the parking lot, and they noticed this. It was a weekend. This was the fourth and final time that the classrooms, if you used to drive by, there were 4 classrooms on the exterior, on the outside, 4 mobile classrooms outside of the high school. This flood was the last time that we were able to sustain any kind of flooding on those 4 mobile classrooms. You can see what happened here in the nurse's office, which is located right in here. There was just a pipe had burst way underneath. And by the way, those pipes are built into the foundation. So you can't just go and pull them out. If you have to take them out, you have to get through the foundation as well. And also, all those pipes and electric, they happen to be covered in one of the most common materials used in the 1950s, and that would be asbestos. So you have abatement issues. But here, what ended up happening was all that water and silt started building up, pressure built up, and just blew out through the floor and went all over the place. The water traveled down through those hallways and up into the theater, and you can see the end result. Ended up causing a sinkhole in the nurse's office. As you can see, all the silt and all the mud and all the dirt and sand that came out. So they ended up pumping in a tremendous amount of essentially form of concrete in order to stabilize that floor. And this is, again, is not a, this is somewhat catastrophic, but we can handle this. It's just it happens all the time. So our labs were built in the 1950s. The classroom I attended, the classroom I taught in, and the classroom that still exists still looks exactly the same. The big difference is we've added components like this is, we used to do experiments in these right here that's supposed to suck all the fumes out in this fume hood. This is an addition, and of course the teacher has to stand up on the side here, put the fan on here, and then pop down and shut it off. That doesn't work anymore, and that's an addition within like 15, 20 years ago. You can see the piping right through here. It's been repaired numerous times, and I would just point out that, one, in addition to the asbestos lab countertops that are all over the place, 1956 is when this was built. So after 63 gum, wrappers, whatever's been put down these clog all the time. Our children are supposed to be doing science in these rooms. These are clogging all the time. This is that same room. And this is pretty par for the course, right? In the 1950s, and even when I was in school, you had students up in front, and then when it was time for lab, you go to the back. Now count up the lab spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, if you count that one in the back, and 5. How many kids are you putting at 5 lab stations? So, teachers, we've always been innovative, creative, trying to find ways to make that work, and we've done it. And during the tours, I hadn't been a long time since I'd been in Joe Darrow's old classroom, and he had a lot of old teachers stop by, and it's amazing if you go around and look at other schools to see how small these classrooms are, but even aside from the size of them, how inefficient and out of date they are in terms of the types of learning that are taking place in them. This is my old classroom, and again, this was my old classroom that I was a student in, and not my old classroom that I taught in. This biology teacher, there's exactly one sink right here. If you want to do a lab, you're not doing anything with water or requires anything with the wet lab. It's not set up for it. And a lot of the other classrooms, we've gone ahead and we've added electricity. There's columns that are coming down that run power and electricity, so the teachers that need them can have them. So here you get creative. It's good. This is a good space, and the structure in this piece, the infrastructure, is in decent shape except for the electrical and the HVAC and the plumbing. This is actually in the new wing, and as we were giving people tours, I told them you would think we'd make this stuff up, but here's what happened in the new wing, which was built in 1995. So it was built up through 1995. It opened up in 1995. In the new wing, there are so many leaks in the roof, and the windowsills fell off within 2 years. I don't know what oversight was going on, and people asked this question of how after 63 years, why wasn't someone keeping eyes on this? Why wasn't someone trying to make sure this was taken care of? Well, a couple things I'd say to that. 1995, I can't answer the question. I wasn't there to see what the oversight is, but I know the state has certainly learned. If they're pumping in $52.7 million, they have people that are on top of this every step of the way. We have our OPM and other people that are looking at the plans. As something is being done, it's inspected before it goes on to the next phase. But here, we've got a roof that's leaking so much, and it's not always the same leak, that we put up a tarp system above the drop ceiling. And by that I mean, think of just a huge tarp that comes down, and we have it funneled down into one location, and then the water just drops down into these buckets. I think Greg Haddon says it best when he says, when you get a good storm, it's raining outside, it's raining inside as well. And that is, again, the reality. I can't go back and fix that. And when we talk about the use of a 1956 building, should someone have gone back 30 years ago and replaced the HVAC? And I mean, why would they probably wouldn't have thought to do that? Because the folks who are running it at the time are just regular custodians. They're head maintenance folks that work really hard, take a lot of pride in what they're doing, but they're not engineers. They don't know what's going on. Something happened with the plumbing. They called in a plumber. A plumber fixed it, and that was that. But no one really had a good grasp of the entire system. That changed about 11 years ago when we brought Greg Haddon on. This is just if we have a student or a teacher who's disabled and wants to go to the bottom floor or the second floor of this wing, they can't. So we move entire classes out into different parts of the building because this feature does not work, hasn't worked. My understanding it's never worked, but it was put in, and then it's too narrow. So if you want to do an egress, the fire inspection, they do not, this is not to code, and it should not have been put in, or should have been put in, everyone should have access, but that we have to move classrooms because students and teachers don't have access because of a disability. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. The gym. So this is our solution to afternoon games. Sun's just blaring in. It used to not be a problem. I know if you get put in windows now, they're argon gas or something that's in the windows. Here they've got something a little bit different. But that's long since deteriorated. So we have tarps inside and outside stop the glare. At the middle school, this classroom looks completely fine. This one had a leak. The leak poured down behind the cinder blocks. We fixed a roof leak on this one, and it's underneath. So as soon as it goes underneath, it's compromised the adhesive that holds those tiles down. We had the teacher and the students move to a different class for the rest of the year because if that tile ends up loosening, which we expect it will, you have teachers and students, hundreds of students every day, stomping on this tile, which is asbestos, and that's going to cause the breakup. Now, we can do an abatement on that, and we will do an abatement on that, but we can't do an abatement in December when this happens. Because to do an abatement, we have to shut down a whole bunch of classrooms and then remove those asbestos tiles. And I think everyone knows, I think the town certainly know, we've been progressively at Bagnell and at both the schools, progressively been doing abatements as they come along. This is our technology solution. I mean, like anything else, you have to find a way. You can't just go through concrete walls. So we put our technology running up through so we can have our hot spots for the kids and our access points all over the place. Gentleman who did suggest, we had a gentleman we were talking who suggested us just putting in an HVAC system with new piping because we pointed out if you put a new boiler in, you can put a new boiler in, but you're still connecting it to 1956 pipes, which means it's going to have problems time and time again. You could put new piping in, same way you put these in. I don't know that the inspectors are going to much appreciate that in the hallways. I also know the cost of it is well over what we're allowed to spend. Another one in the middle school, this is a flood. You can see there, right there, all nice and it's wet on the floor. That got fixed, and then it flooded again a second time. So these are just small samples. And just to go over how real this is outside, and you can see March 28th of this year. I already told you about the bubbling springs. We've had a couple other pipes burst. This is the high school parking lot. I was sitting in a work group meeting for the building project, and we got this text with these pictures. And it was this sinkhole over here on the side. It's because of bad drainage, and it's eating away at everything underneath. So that just sunk in. Crazy about this is it's the same pipe that about 25 feet away from here, middle of the road, if you came to the high school, you were seeing cones around it. It's the same pipe. And again, we can get digging. This gets a little more pricey because we're not digging through dirt. But you know, we see these things, we fix them. It's money consuming, it's time consuming. And while this doesn't stop school from happening, it essentially, all this is like it's a volcano. So an earthquake. You have this tremor, and then you have a catastrophic event. So here's some comparisons. So anyone who was in the high school when it opened in '56, this is what it looked like, the old wood seats. They put in some new ones here, and they took out these seats. There's a lot of seats that have been removed. This is what a new one will look like, and I actually have even we'll do a walkthrough in a little bit. You'll see an updated one. This is the old shop class and tech class, auto tech class. You can see that because it's garage door. We've made this an art room. We put everything we can. We put it into this space. This is what a modern art room looks like. Okay, science. Science is not up for grabs with the MSBA. They require you to build a science room a very specific way, and it makes sense. And not just in the science room, but every room is designed because you don't know what's going to happen educationally, how teachers are going to teach and learners learn 10, 15, 30 years from now. So every space is flexible. But the labs, because they know they need lab space, every lab, you have the gas, electric around the perimeter, and all the seats and the tables, all have casters, all have wheels on them, so you can move them around. So if I'm doing a dissection, in the old model, when I was taking biology, I was way in the back and you're kind of standing up hoping you can see. In this model, teacher can have their station right in the middle. All the students can have a front row seat to what's going on. We have a science movement science program at the high school. It's very popular. I have a lot of students going on to take athletic training, physical training, kinesiology, things like that. At the next level in college, they take a lot of their courses here. We had a lot of equipment that was donated to us by the Pawtucket Ed Foundation for those courses. All of that equipment was supposed to be in a classroom. That classroom was one of the 4 that got destroyed. So now that equipment sits in the hallway. And you can see here, this looks like more like it's a after-school event. Our classes for movement science, they do a lot more measuring. You get on there, you're measuring heart rates. What are the variables that impact heart rates? Just as an example. So one of the things I mentioned is we have a threshold. That building is assessed at $12.1 million. We can only spend $3.6 million. Once we go over 30%, we have to bring everything up to code. The middle school, it's $3 million, so we can spend $1 million at the middle school. The HVAC system, even if we put it in brand spanking new with new piping, or just the HVAC, it would be $6 million. But to replace everything that was already there is anywhere from 9 to 11 once you start talking about abatements and taking out the old pipes. So we know already that if we start repairing, so if you think, you got to think, if you're not going to build new, if you're going to try to repair that HVAC system, the walls are just like these. They're concrete blocks. The hallways are not wide enough. You have to blow out an entire wall and make it wider. That does amazing things to classroom spaces. Takes them from small to extra small, or it changes the outside of your envelope. So we know from July what the cost is for the high school. It's $73.2 million, or 72 points, or 72, we'll say 72 points. It's over $70 million. And for the middle school, that same repair only is just over $40 million. So the repairs are going to be over $110 million. And the contingency plan, I think you all know, we put together contingency plans. The reason being we had at Page Elementary last year and 7 years ago at Donahue Elementary. There were floods, students had to relocate. But we know the high school is our Achilles heel. So we want to make sure that students aren't out of school for long periods of time. If something happens, we have places for them to go. The high school would move to the middle school, and the middle schools would all come to their respective elementaries. What I've got now, a couple videos, or 3 videos, that just kind of show you what the new building will look like. Let's see if this will. Actually, you know what? I've got this down into one video. You don't even have to watch all 3. So I'll walk us through. So this is Farm Lane right here. This is the entrance to the high school. Now on the building, it's 3 levels. High school is on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is the middle school. The top 2 floors are the left-hand side. You have secure access, high school access here for anyone coming in. middle school access here on this side for anyone coming in, and this is where your counselors, receptionists, and any administrators would be. Sometimes questions of security come up. I'm somewhat entertained by that because right now, even my daughter, I have three daughters, one's in 8th grade, she goes back and forth twice between the high school and the middle school. So when we talk about security, there's people moving between the buildings all the time. Here, it's exponentially more secure. So now we're walking into the high school side, and now you're going to go inside the building and get kind of an interior shot. These are dining areas. There's dining areas downstairs, this side, the other side, and upstairs. So students can go in small groups, big groups, however they want to do. Your auditorium's right there, so all this furniture can move. So if there's a performance, and one of the things we really like, we're about to go in the auditorium, one of the things we really like about this is this design allows it not to be used just by the students, but when the school day ends, community groups will have access to this as well. So if you were doing something to do with art for senior citizens or cooking classes, or if there was some performance that was going to be put on by a community group, they'd be able to come in and have access because that's the way the building is set up right now. Our current building, if you have a community group that comes in and we're in the middle of a play, we use all of the side rooms and the auditorium. They don't have access because we don't have the space for them to go. Here, we'd have that space. And one of the big things for me is that this building and a school should be the center of the community. This building is not just should not just be the center of the community, but it should be used by the entire community. So you're on the second floor right now. And you can see down there's the dining areas again. So here we are walking through the library. So one of the things we see a lot of times in schools, I've been to several, I know the entire team's been to more, but students have all sorts of breakout spaces all over the place. And you can see all the windows. Windows are multi-purpose. One gives them more open space, but also if I'm teaching a class and I have a group working outside, I can see the kids. So you can see the kids wherever they're working. And again, so much of the way we teach and students learn now is in small groups that are well, in our current case, that are crammed into one single classroom. But in every place we went, students are learning in all spaces of the building, even if they're within the same class.
Justin?
Yeah.
This is a state design, right?
So the state-approved design, yeah. The state has this
But
design.
it's based off one of their designs that you can
Yeah, there were
articulate a little bit?
Yeah, sure. There were the model schools that they had several years ago, and they stopped giving the incentive points for the model schools. And one of the things they told us was when it came to the model schools, they'd basically say you can take it and you can edit it how you wanted to edit it. So they would take the foundation and make it something completely different and get additional points for the increase their grant. So they stopped giving those points for reimbursement. Some of the models that they had, like one of the options that we had looked very similar to one of their models. but the community rejected. It was the same 7 to 12 setup. It was kind of a box, and they just did not, that did not receive many votes at all.
Well, some of the complaints that I've heard are, you're getting all the bells and whistles and you go in extravagant, and I wanted to point out that it's not. It's actually,
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
have been cutting back on things to actually keep the cost down.
Yeah, so so here in the back, by the way, that's all arts. In the middle, it's all arts. Students walk in there, and they'll walk down, they'll see the artwork every day. But yes, in terms of that, so someone said it's very fancy. And I would say, yes, relative to the 1956 building, it does look fancy, but relative to the other buildings I've been into, it is not. And one of the big reasons it's not is because myself and the other members of the team sit there, and we are penny pinching to make sure we get quality item that's going to be durable, easy to maintain, and is conducive to learning. We want something that's going to be built and is going to be there for a long time. I don't need fancy architectural pieces in the plan. We want it to look nice, but we don't need anything above and beyond what the kids and the teachers need. So this, you might remember, we've not ever been able to do anything like this. We just acquired that property right there in front back in October, which is allowing us to even put that ball field there. So are there any questions about this building right here? I have a site plan that goes, it just kind of does a timeline of what it would look like rolling out as things roll out. I can show you that real quick.
You have shared resources between the two schools, right?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
efficiencies.
Yep,
Can you talk
absolutely.
about that a little
Sure. So right now, you would have redundancy in quite a few things, right? So we have everything inside, like the auditorium shared. You only have one auditorium. You're not building two auditoriums. You have a gym that's much larger than the gym we have, and there's a separate place. What is it called? There's a place. Yeah, it's more of like a yoga. It's like a big, huge space for yoga or alternative gym.
Yeah, so it's like a dance studio slash,
There you go.
area where you can do wrestling. It's got a gym floor, but it's about 22,000 square feet, so it's a different gym location as well.
Yeah. So we have all those spaces because instead of duplicating costs, you now have everything under one single roof. And we talk about, like for world languages, the kids are going back and forth because all the world languages are at the junior high. Well, now everyone's just kind of, there's a world language center to that school, and that's where the students go for the world language center. Everything's kind of housed under here. And then you start looking at, well, one area we absolutely will not reduce down is on our maintenance. Because we don't want to make sure we're dropping our maintenance by about 50,000 square feet. So that crew is going to have less to work, less space they'll have to take care of, but obviously they'll keep it in pristine condition during that time. Chief?
Yeah, I got a couple of, I started school there in '58 when it opened, all right?
Yes, sir.
And the first graduating class was '59. I was still in junior high school when that opened. Now, you talk about the electrical vault, you're still gonna need electrical vaults in there, I would think. I mean, you mentioned something,
Yep.
13K. It kind of does. If you're gonna build a building that big, I'm sure you're gonna have substations in there. Because I was foreman of maintenance, so we had 3 substations, because the building was so big, so we wouldn't
Bring
have
it
the whole
in,
building.
we'd step it down from line voltage from 13.8 down to 220.
220s, yeah.
Well, I'm assuming you're gonna have 3 phases.
If I could just get, if we could get
Sorry.
the questions to the podium so that everyone in the
Sure.
audience could hear, that would
Or
be.
get the microphone
Or get a
passed around.
microphone
I can hand you the
passed
mic,
around.
yeah.
I'm not sure the audience is quite getting
So the
all your
question was about the
questions.
electric coming in, that we would have electricity. We definitely will have a level of electricity. Right now, it's the equivalency of what's on telephone poles coming into the building. That would be taken down to 220 stations. 220, what do you call those? Not stations.
No.
Well,
We-
you bring it down, transformer, you
Yeah.
transformer outside the building.
So as I talk about these things, please note, I'm not an electrical engineer.
With the lighting and stuff like that.
Some of it may be, yeah.
And also, will there be? Yeah, will there be a firefighter access, fire department access around the building? Will there be a road around the building?
Yes, sir, that's an automatic, has to happen. And actually, in the next video, you can actually see where that fire access ends up being for the building. Oh, sorry, yes, it's Vertex is our OPM.
Who do they work for?
They work for both us and the MSBA.
Okay, because the problem we had at the high school, the problem I had, the problem when I was chief in West Newbury, the problem I had at the high school when it was redone was the clerk of the works was hired by the architect. So his legiancy was for the architect. I had some problems there that needed to be fixed, and off the record, the clerk of the works said, "You're right, chief, but I can't argue with you because my paycheck comes from the..." So we need somebody that's hired by the school committee or whoever's, going to be in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what Vertex represents, both Pentucket and the state. And both since Pentucket and the state are pumping in big chunks of money, even right now. Yeah, whatever he will or she will do our bidding, whatever we want, as long as it's possible. It's a great question, though.
No, I would think theoretically that if you go from two very old, outdated, energy inefficient buildings to one state-of-the-art, energy efficient building, that my operating costs would or should come down. I would also think my R&M line would come down because now I'm not constantly repairing costly items. So while there is a repair and maintenance aspect to a new building, I get it. I would think that'd be considerably less than trying to maintain two really old ones. Am I wrong in that?
No, I think that's a point that often comes up, and yeah, there's no question. You're cutting down on square footage, and you're replacing incredibly inefficient systems. This is going to be a LEED building, so it's meeting energy standards. This will be 35% more efficient than what the standard is for LEED. So we will certainly be making savings there. I think one of those, I had opened up a building in North Carolina. It was a new middle school, and they had put in geothermal. So one of the things we calculated out was, okay, how many years until the cost of putting the geothermal in got paid off? And initially, we thought it was about 12 years. But we were able to compare the old systems to this new system, and ended up being 8 years is when we were going to make that money back. I will say, one of the new buildings, there's sensors all over the place. So one of the nice things we have in having a facilities director who knows intimately the buildings inside and out is that we know when we have someone in place to help keep those sensors, which log information, they review that data, and the building, those sensors tell you what areas are running efficiently and which ones are running inefficiently, and how to make those your energy efficiency. So overall, the answer to your question is right. We're not doing replacements and repairs and maintenance all over the place in a new building. That's a very rare thing. You're just keeping it up. You're keeping the shine on it. You're keeping it new. And then when those sensors tell you that something's amiss, you know well in advance that something has to be corrected. If they're run right, we ran into minor problems in the building we had built.
So along that same line, if that's true, then I would expect some of the cost, a reduced cost of the R&M line and the operating costs to kind of help offset the cost of the new buildings, right?
Sure, I think that goes to what we talked about before as well, about not just there, but you'd also expect you have groups merging, you're not duplicating efforts either in a lot of instances. So I think the opportunity for costs over the long term are very, very significant.
But I get what you're saying. When it comes to the outside of the building,
Yep.
the outside building envelope, it looks to me like you're gonna need more equipment. You got a lot more landscaping, you got a lot more maintenance, more hot top area to plow and care. Are you gonna take that in consideration going down the road?
Yeah, so
You need more equipment to do what you got. I mean,
yeah, I mean, we have a finite amount of people. The hot tub, when we talked about plowing, what we haven't quite landed on yet is what are we going to put? I mean, I think we saw earlier in the video there were stones down because if we put concrete down, you can't salt that, and we got kids coming into a building. So we're trying to troubleshoot a lot of that. Greg Haddon has been fabulous in that he looks at it always from a maintenance standpoint of what's it going to take, how are we going to deal with it. When we look at the plants, we really don't know what the plants are going to be. We talk about all the time.
but I'm saying as far as maintenance
Yep.
down the road.
Yeah, what we look at it all the time from is, okay, if we put all this up there, someone has to deal with it. Someone has to keep it clean. Someone has to cut the grass. So we often are heard saying, We love to have grass. Just put grass. We can cut the grass and put it in places where it's accessible. Or you put down perennials that will just be, I'm in your wheelhouse now, so this is dangerous. But you put down a perennial that needs very little maintenance. Maybe it needs to be trimmed every once in a while, and you let it be. But that's what we're going to be looking for, because we don't want to get into the very elaborate landscaping or anything like that's going to require time.
Right. And one thing that you haven't talked about, and I've been to the Merrimack meeting, but no one's mentioned it, what's happened with administration offices? That's not, it hasn't been mentioned in any
Oh,
of these.
good. Yeah, yeah. Well, when I get to the next movie, I'll talk.
all right,
It's
okay.
great. It's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Don't let me sit down without talking about that. Anyone else? Okay, let me see if I've got, before you hear this other video. So this is a time, oh, that's not good. Of course it can't be.
You have to reconnect to the Wi-Fi.
Thought he was connected.
It
Oh, no,
times
he's
out
not.
after a certain amount
Yeah.
of time in our public Wi-Fi.
All right, now it's going to be,
You're good to go.
it says I'm connected. Am I good,
Yeah.
Denise, you think?
Should be.
No, we just
No.
tell you that.
Says I'm connected.
Try and refresh that.
That's the Comcast answer.
Yeah.
Did you reboot it?
That's all I ever do.
Unplug your router, count to 20, plug it back in.
Right.
Oh, here we go. Who's got the freeze on this?
Oh, you don't want to see your password. Have them go.
The whole town?
Top
Oh,
right.
I know, this is great.
It should be the top right button.
This happened at the high school, I'd understand it.
Yeah, I know.
So now we need
I don't think the freeze.
You want to connect to my phone?
There you go.
We can do that.
Stay tuned for the audio part of the show while we try to get the video back on. That's what happens at baseball games.
Well, you're on the video right now.
All right, we're back up and running.
Oh, is that
It should.
Is Part B gonna work now?
You hope. Well, let's see.
Yep.
Look at that.
So this will show a whole time lapse, and I'm going to pause it when we get to you had asked a question about the admin building. So this is the current campus as it exists. And that's the same amount of spaces as we have right now. So you can see the fencing's up, they've identified the site, now they start working.
Two little trucks to along.
So keep your eye right here. This is the current boiler room. The tip of this building actually touches the end of this boiler room, so we're going to add temporary heating right there.
How much did that add to the overall cost of the project? Temporary heating to bring in that?
That I don't.
I think, we looked at renting a skid for that, and I think it was about $40,000, something like that.
So if you didn't hear that, the answer was about $40,000.
And necessary, right? You mean you have to do that?
Yeah, without the heat, we're not having school. So that's something that had to exist. And I think one of the important things the community was very steadfast on, they did not want students leaving and coming back in and moving around. So the opportunity to build it without putting them back and forth between places was ideal for the parents. So I'm going to stop this right. This is the demo. So the building's complete, the students have moved in. It is now time to remove the old buildings. This is the admin office right here. You can keep your eye on it, that's fine. Now I'm going to hit pause, just so we can talk about that real quick. So this admin office is what Chairman O'Neill had asked about. There was a price tag on here for about $4.4 million to put up a new admin office with team rooms. I think everyone, if you hadn't heard, you read maybe, I was quoted as, "I don't care where you put me." This is not about the kids. It's not about the people in the main office. This is about the kids. This is about the teachers and them getting what they need. I was happy to work underneath the tent. As long as it was climate controlled, I'm good to go, and we can do our work there. So this building, we said, just keep it for now. So we're not changing anything. District office is going to stay right where it is for the time being. We might actually come back and take that down altogether, but that would be not part of this project and wouldn't be anything additional we would come to the taxpayers for. But we are fine and can work in here. Everything else will go away. So we've cut out those millions of dollars just to save. And I think what Selectman Wood had mentioned earlier was we've constantly been just looking at this, how do you save, how do you save, how do you save? Without compromising the integrity of the building. So there's parking where the old high school was, and this will be, you get the field there, ideally that'll be multi-purpose, and here will be another multi-purpose field hockey, lacrosse, soccer, football stadium. So that would be what the new campus would look like.
And I understand that building to the right of the football field is where the locker rooms will be for the
Right
student
here?
athletes?
This one right here?
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. And there's obviously, now that you're building something that needs to be up to code, I mean, it's locker rooms, there's bathrooms, because you're going to have fans that need to have bathrooms. You have to have so many bathrooms per, depends on the size of your stands. All these nice things that I ended up go as we went through the whole project. So yeah, that will be, and there's a snack shack down there as well for groups who are selling food or.
And all parts of the campus, buildings, grounds, fields, are all 100%
Oh, great question. Yes.
accessible?
So even if you turned a building upside down and shook it and stuff fell out, it's all inclusive. It's the building, it's everything that's going to go inside the building, it's all of it. I know that the field hockey, that turf field with the stadium, that field, it has lights on there. We're going to have it light ready, but we don't have money built in for the lights. We think after the project's done, someone might come in and be willing, like sponsor, and put the lights up that way. But we didn't add that as part of the project. And you noticed another key thing, everything that was in the back remains untouched. And I would point that out as an example of the kind of the new philosophical approach with the people we have now that we've been taking. That track, I think, is 5 years old now. The track, tennis court, softball field, they're in exceptional shape. And we have reserves set aside specifically for, we know the track needs to be resurfaced every 8 years. We know that tennis courts have to be resurfaced. You could easily take that money and put it somewhere else, but we know that's going to be upcoming. And instead of coming to the towns and saying, hey, we need to resurface a track, we're able to take care of that on our own because the way we budget 5-10 years down the road as opposed to just from year to year.
And the entire campus, every nook and cranny will be ADA compliant, so that's,
Yes, absolutely. Every bit of this has to be ADA compliant. And again, I'm an advocate for children. So if I'm a disabled child, I should be able to access every single part of the campus that anyone else should be able to access.
right now, they don't have
now,
that accessibility.
We don't have it for anyone who might be disabled. So, overall cost, 146.3. The state is 52.7, so 53 million, and it could go as high as 54 million. So what does that mean? Now these numbers are 2 months old. They shouldn't have changed that much, but you can see Groveland, about 745 is the cost, and you should be asking the question, how do you come up with that number? It's a great question. Well, business manager does, but it's based on these right here. So you have the number of students that are in each town. We have a bond rate of 2.75%. So this is not something that I can just walk down to the credit union and say, hey, we need to borrow $93 million. This has to be put out and bid on. So 2.75 is about, it was very conservative for early February. Looked like there were some non-callables that are going about 2.25. We don't know, so we have this at 2.75 because that gives us a really good idea of what people would end up paying. It's your home assessed value for 2019, and this is the median home value right here.
And each year, depending on student population,
Yep.
Median income of the town, these numbers will fluctuate from year to year.
Yeah, it's not a huge fluctuation, but you're absolutely right. So if there were a 40B project that were able to come in and they all of a sudden added another 200 students, that town would have a higher percentage and a higher share of the cost. But it happens right now. There's fluctuations that
Right.
happen right now. When I was living in town, Groveland was the second biggest, and now it's the biggest. So Groveland's taken on a little more of the lion's share.
So, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, and I know you people have done a lot of work on showing the slides and showing what needs to be done. No doubt in my mind, the cables,
Sure.
the rot, the broken pipes, et cetera. At the end of the day, and I know someone's already told me this, they're gonna put the project out to bid, they're gonna hope the project comes in under bid. But what are you guys gonna put in place to stop the inflation cost?
Yeah.
No project you do is ever gonna hit 1.46 or whatever it is. So, in all fairness, how do we get to that number? And I know
Yeah.
in government, we cannot say to the taxpayers, we're going to town vote 1.46 or 1.43, and we can't say that when they go vote for it.
So I think,
To make the people feel comfortable, I think we owe that to them. And, to try and, if we want it to pass, we need to really make the people feel comfortable. They got this. I believe they got this. I think you guys have done a great job. But I think if you want this to pass, we really need to get to the point and tell these people, we can get to an end number here, you know? And you're gonna, in 30 years, you're gonna stay, this number's not gonna grow too much, you know what I mean? And I'll let you talk in a minute. My second part of it is, we have a Bagnell school. They're gonna get this beautiful new facility. What's gonna stop them coming back and saying to us, hey, guys, the Bagnell school needs pipes, broken saw, broken roof, leak this, leak that. We need a school. So are you pretty confident the school, the Bagnell's in pretty good shape, or you think that we're gonna be coming down the road looking for us for the Bagnell, you know what I'm saying? And I know I'm putting you on the spot,
that's all
but that's who I am, so.
And it's my job too, so.
Yeah, so,
So first, I would say it sounds like you've done some projects before in your time.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
know
yeah.
about the budget. So a couple things. One, I think it is important for all the citizens to understand that that number that comes across, aside from those fluctuations, so once that interest rate's locked in,
Yep.
that price is pretty much, that's it. We're not, it's not going to go up. It's not going to drop down. That's it. That's 30 years. That's where it's going. We're not front loading $2,500 this first year to drop it down to 500. That's 740. It's going to be right around there. Depends on the interest rate for 30 years. And that's the way that one plays out. I think the second question you had about what the Bagnell, us coming back and say, Bagnell's a mess, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, my assessment of what has been told to me, one is that the Merrimack schools are in the best shape. Sweetser needs, I think they need some boilers. We're hoping we might be able to help them out. We might not be able to help them out because we have some boilers I think could use maybe from the middle school. But those schools tend to be in the best shape because the Donahue was just redone for the reasons we don't want to run into 7 years ago. The high school, no question, is in the worst shape, followed by the middle school. Page is an old building that has a lot of work done to it. Neat building that has a lot of work. I think our fear about Bagnell is not necessarily the infrastructure. Our fear about Bagnell would be the capacity should we have a huge increase of students. That would be our fear.
and that would be an addition possibly.
That would be, yep. And I think a lot of those issues, so when I was at Bagnell, when I went to Bagnell, there was the hallway down the end and the one hallway. Now there's other hallways. So when those other additions were put on, I'm sure a lot of that infrastructure was taken care of because the entire main office area, the cafeteria, the brand new gym, all of that stuff was completely renovated and brought up. So
You're pretty confident the Bagnell could be added on to?
yeah, I think
And you don't think it'd be a rip-down, new school type thing? From what you've seen, not holding you to the fire.
yeah, I was gonna say that's a
No, but you're confident we can
Yeah,
add on, and right now, the way the school is, aren't we down on students in the Bagnell?
yeah. So Bagnell, I look at that and it's the roof. The roof would be the concern, the original, but that would be the one concern I'd look at for Bagnell. Student population-wise, yeah, I think across the district over the last 10 years, we're down 26%. A big part of that is that the last choice students who, when we offered choice 7 years ago, that were in kindergarten, they're now in 6th grade. So those students, school committee again this year did not offer to re-up with school choice. So those students continue to matriculate through. So we're seeing a big drop in that elementary population. And also we're seeing a drop, and we talk about our communities getting grayer because the average age of residents has gone significantly up. And I think a big factor in that is just the cost of living in our three towns has gone up as well. So you don't typically have families that are quite as young.
All right, so my last question, how do we get to the end number? How can we,
Oh, sure.
the 1.463, how do we keep that from growing?
So the 146.3, couple things on that. One, there's a lot of checks and balances that happen with the state along the way. But you're absolutely right to the point of it would be foolish of anyone to sit here and say, hey, 140 is our concrete, we're not going one way or the other, because you don't get to control what happens with trade wars with China or tariffs or anything like that. You don't get to control it. We need steel. This is going to be built on steel. Whatever the cost is, in order to build this, we need steel. But we have built into this a lot of contingencies. There's what percentage of contingencies, Mr. Dorr?
10% contingency just overall on construction costs. There's another 10% design and pricing contingency because we're only 15% complete on design right now. So that's assumed to be part of the project.
Sorry. You have to start that again. I'm sorry.
Sorry. So there's an overall 10% contingency on the cost of construction, right?
10%.
The hard costs. And then built into that, in addition to that, there's a 10% design and pricing contingency. And what that is because the project's only about 15% designed right now, schematic design, it looks like it's pretty far down the road, but there's a long way to go. And so that design and pricing contingency is set up to go to zero, so it's basically assumed for things that are unknown in the design today. Right, so that goes to zero over time and gets subsumed into the project cost.
Right.
So escalation has been built into the project. So they've had an escalation assumption that they've built into the midpoint of construction. We can't control it, right, if it goes out of whack. It's happened before. However, we've taken all the steps that we can reasonably take at this point. We've also had 2 estimators look at this. Both are independent estimators. They both go and look at it independently. They look at the same thing. Then they come back with their estimate, and then they reconcile that estimate. That's part of the MSBA process. That's all been done. So I think, at this point, at this juncture, we've done as much as we possibly can do to try and mitigate that. So you have those contingencies, right, that are built in. There's going to be change orders on this job. There will be. There's going to be unforeseen conditions, right? There are going to be issues. There's going to be errors. There's going to be omissions. It's going to happen. It happens on every job, right? You know that. And so those are built into the contingency, so those things can be accommodated.
So my question to you would be, 10%, and I'm not in your field, but I've done little projects, 10%, it's usually 20. Are you comfortable with 10% is a good number to carry? Because usually, projects are 15 to 20 over, usually, but I'm not in the big end of things like you guys are.
So the industry standard for what we're talking about here is 8 to 10%.
Okay.
For at this stage of design.
Okay, what do you think the chances are at 146.3, the bid comes in under? So you put out the bid, you think it's gonna stay
You
there or
can't,
go over?
you can't even guess on that.
No, but
So I think,
You've seen school projects go out, they're either 20 or 30% under, or 20, I know when I bid town jobs, they either run under or they'll run over, depends on the economy. The economy's good, things run more, the economy's bad, they run less.
hard to tell, right? I mean, I'd be lying to you here if I said, I could tell you if it's gonna
Okay.
be under or over,
It's a fair, I'm
right?
just asking.
I think everybody's tried to do a pretty reasonable job of being realistic about what those numbers are, and the fact that there's 2 independent estimators, again,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
that are looking at it,
Right.
there's a check and balance there.
And if things, let's just say, and I know, if things go haywire, are we talking haywire by 50, or are we talking haywire by 100? In the past.
Can
know
you
what
give
I'm
me the
saying?
Powerball number?
What's that?
Can you give me the Powerball number?
No,
I mean,
I'm just saying it-
I know, but
I know-
I don't know if these things are predictable at this point in
I'm
the
not
phase.
talking about predictable in this project, I'm talking about in the history of projects. This isn't their first job, it's not their first job.
No, it's not. And some of them are over, and some of them are under, and some of them are just right. It's just like the 3 bears, right? But everybody goes into it with the same, kind of working assumption that, you do the best job that you can, right? And the market does what the market does. We can't control it.
And you understand why I'm asking, to the superintendent, do you understand why I'm doing this?
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
asking, and I'm not trying to throw a wrench into your
No,
project.
no,
I'm
not
trying
at
to- For the people that elected me, I'm asking the questions
Sure.
for them, and I'm trying to give everyone the fair say in the conversation, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot either. And I know these guys are getting aggravated with me, but
So-
I know you can't get an end game. I'm asking in the past. I know, as I said, I've bid on jobs when the economy's bad. You bid on them tight, you need the work for the guys, et cetera, et cetera. When the economy's good, things seem to go up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, and that's why I said we don't get to. There's some things we don't get to control, but I know Bagnell, when the Bagnell addition was done, it was done. They used less than 1%, I think, contingency, because you had people that. It's just the timing of it was what it was, and if we come in at just 1%, that's huge. That's huge savings to the taxpayers, and if we get there, that's great. That'd be great.
I think,
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Kathy Kesternells. I'm on the finance board in town. And so I hear the questions about the project and the cost, but I think I was on the Board of Selectmen, maybe the finance board, when the last project got voted down. And at that time, we were not facing those kind of repairs in the building, that kind of a problem with the pipes. We had problems, but it wasn't, this is really bad. So this is another what if. So is there any way you can quantify the type of path that we'd have to follow if this is not done, so that the building clearly is going to fall apart? The heating is going to fail. The pipes are going to fail. We're not going to have any timing on this. We're not going to be able to budget for this. The towns will be charged for this because we have to provide a school for our students. Do you have any way you can describe that to us? That would make sense. Thank you.
Of course I do. You're welcome. Thank you for the question, Ms. Castronellis. So I'm actually going to go to the next slide because it's going to answer this question. So what happens if the building project doesn't pass? Okay. So of the 6 votes needed, 3 on April 29th at town meeting, and then 3 at the ballot the following Monday. If one of those 6 comes up no, it's a no. So if it does not pass, I cannot emphasize this point enough. My duty is to the children. My duty is to the district, school district. I will come before you within that month and immediately request we do a feasibility study on the high school for repairing the high school. That'll cost us about $1.5 million. So that's the first cost that will be taken on by the taxpayers if it's approved. And that'd be, again, we'd go through this exact same process. 4 years is what it was here, working with the state. It's not going to take us much short. It won't be faster. It'll be less time, but not significantly. So we'll be looking at additional time to get through the repairs. Now, repairing that high school means that all those children are coming out for much longer than 3 years because you're not building a new building. You're taking away their old building. You're repairing their old building. There will be at least 4 or 5 years worth of students that will be educated in the current middle school. And the middle schools will go down to their respective buildings. My concern, again, would be Merrimack schools can hold their 7th and 8th grade. We know they all can right now. Bagnell will be my concern about its capacity. But right now, it's fine. Right now, it'll be fine. So as soon as that, if that gets approved, then I'm coming back again to do the same thing for the middle school. So the total bill out of our own pockets, because we will not get any support from the MSBA, the total bill is going to be over $110 million. And that's to bring everything up to the standards so that that child or all children have the correct educational space and it will sustain. But to answer your question, so that's the cost if it's a no. The amount of time, if it is a yes vote, that would be wonderful. And I will have sleepless nights until August of 2022, until I know that that building's done and we have a new building. Because for the next 3 years, I will still be dealing with bursts, asbestos, electric issues. We'll still be having those same problems. And we, as the collective towns, we will still be paying for those issues. My gut tells me we're not making it 3 years. That building will not sustain 3 years. When that happens, that's why we put the contingency in place, so we know where the kids are going to go. So if it is a no vote on the new building, and then a no vote on the repairs later on, we just ride that building until it's gone. Until we can't repair it because it's too expensive, and we are now out, and Pawtucket Regional High School is now housed at the middle school, and there is no middle school. And anything we do, that point moving forward, is out of our own pockets, 100%. No one's going to fly in to help us. No one's coming in to give us $53 million. That's on us. But that's, again, that sounds very dramatic. It is. It's a very serious vote. So I just want to make sure when people show up at the polls, when people show up at town meeting, they know what they're talking about. They know what they're voting on. Again, we've 20 years. I was in Bagnell when we were doing the whole conversation about the building back then, because I was living in Groveland back then. We voted. It didn't make it. We've had 20 years to think about that. And I think to Ms. Castronellis' point, 20 years, the building wasn't in good shape, and it is in far worse shape right now. And if you took a tour of the building, you would understand exactly how bad of shape it is in. By the way, Mr. Dorr, who spoke earlier, for those of you on TV, he's actually one of he's the lead architect on this.
So just to clarify, Bill, because I want to make sure we got this right. On the 10%, if somebody goes and looks for 10%, 5% is going to be an owner's contingency, 3% is going to be an escalation contingency, and 2% tractor's contingency. So all of those, they're kind of dispersed throughout that whole estimate. So somebody's gonna go out and look for that, but just for clarity's sake, that's how it's broken out.
Selectman Watson, you had a question?
Yeah, I just got a couple. You talked about shared use.
Yes,
Does that also include cafeteria and library?
yes.
It
Yep.
does.
We envision a lot of, so up in the kind of the simulation you saw there, you saw computers, you saw things like that. We would very much like the opportunity to have community folks come in after school hours to have access. I mean, there's computer ed programming that can be done. We run community education right now for students, both. So we can expand that. I know senior citizens come and use the high school right now, but only to walk. Again, the space is an issue. But if we can run, I know there's not a lot of programming space. I used to work with the Groveland Housing Authority. There's not a lot of programming space there. But we would want community members there. Because I think anytime you bring children and senior citizens and adults together in the community, that's what a school is. That's what a school does. That's representation of a school represents its community. And if we have everyone, and that's the focal point, then we've done our job.
I think you misunderstood me. What I meant by the shared
Oh, for the
cafeteria,
students,
but shared
yes.
by both schools,
Yeah,
middle
so
school
something-
and high school.
So something like lunch, for example, there'd be a couple middle school lunches and a couple high school lunches. So they wouldn't overlap or mingle in, but yes, it's one media center for 7 to 12, one cafeteria space 7 to 12, one auditorium 7 to 12. Yeah, those are all shared spaces.
The other one that, I know it came up before, but are you planning on getting your power from the town of Groveland, which would be cheaper than getting it from West Newbury?
So,
I know we tried that at one point not long ago, and we said we couldn't get out of getting the power from West Newbury. What's the plans on this?
so I don't think we finalized anything. Right now, I think we have power, right now we have power coming from West Newbury, right? So, which is National Grid. What was interesting was we got I think National Grid's been very ambitious with incentives and things like that, trying to make that cost way down because they know we'd be a consumer of their product. So I think we'll just wait out. At the end of the day, we are going to go with whatever's the cheapest. Whatever's going to be the most affordable option is the way we'll go.
Well, that makes sense. The last question I got, the athletic complexes. Now, none of that is, the state grant cannot be used for any of the athletic complexes. That has to be borne by the taxpayers?
So so there's eligibility. Parts of the athletic complexes are eligible, like in the gymnasium, there's eligibility. A big part of that's eligible. But yeah, there's certain parts that are not.
What's the, like, obviously the soccer field, football field, baseball field, that's not covered by the state grant. What's the cost for?
Artificial turf fields are categorically ineligible.
The fields themselves are in it.
Fields themselves are eligible so long as we're within the state guidelines in terms of caps. There's eligible costs that are subject to a cap. But the only thing that was shown that is categorically ineligible are artificial turf fields, right? As Dr. Bartholomew said, our gym here is slightly larger than what the MSBA guideline is. It's about 3,000 square feet larger than what the state normally would mandate. Those 3,000 square feet are ineligible for reimbursement, so the district is paying full freight on that. The carpet on the artificial turf field, that's ineligible, right? Bleachers are eligible, so there are parts of it that are.
You probably don't have a cost of what that would cost the taxpayers for the athletic portion of it that's not covered by the state grant?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's in the estimate.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Selectman Wood?
You're welcome.
I would assume that the 3,000 square feet for the bigger gym offsets the cost of putting in 2 gyms.
Yes,
for
that is
building.
absolutely correct.
All right, so that's one cost. And then I would assume also that the artificial turf requires a lot less maintenance and water and seeding and fertilizer and everything, which offsets that cost.
It offsets the cost, but more importantly, it gives access, nonstop access, so you're
Right.
not having to rest the field.
Right. So while there is a higher cost associated with those that aren't eligible, the overall maintenance and building of an additional school, and the resources to put into the field maintenance of those programs would be less.
It's use.
Right.
In New England, it's often about use, right? You can't get out there to play on the glass fields and on pipe state right now because they're wet,
Right.
right? You can't practice. You know, I've had 4 kids go through the system, so, you know, we're disadvantaged as far as that's concerned. But here, you're able to use it all the time.
Right.
And for, at the high school, we constantly have youth programs that want to come up and use the facilities. Basketball will still be tight, but everything outdoors, we put if there is an artificial turf, that's all 3 towns. I mean, it's going to be tight competition at some points, but again, if that baseball field up front, if we're able to turf that completely, that opens up all sorts of possibilities again. make
One-time
that-
cost as opposed
The
to
one-time
ongoing
cost
costs.
that,
Right.
again, all 3 towns would have access to, especially if we can get all those fields there, which you want to make this the epicenter of the community.
But the idea of, it's not exactly a true statement that the artificial turfs are maintenance-free.
That's
A lot of
true, it's
maintenance, a lot of maintenance costs with artificial turf. And there's a lot of things that are prohibited. Gum, Gatorade, just to name a few, that add to the cost of maintenance.
Absolutely. There's different types, there's different ways of maintaining. Some people go over and they drop whatever the pellets might be. Some people are using coconut now. Some people are using coconut on artificial turf now. So there's that kind of cost, but
And the same with, the athletic shoes that the participants are using is a different type for athletic, artificial turf as opposed to natural turf.
a little different than we used to use at the old AstroTurf, but it is a different type of shoe. Again, to me, it comes down more to the ability to use it far more often. And the more you use it, the better off, I mean, that school becomes the community center.
I think that's it. I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming in and giving the voters this kind of in-depth presentation. I think the walkthrough was great. It gave a lot of people, I think, a real good visual, not only of what the campus will look like, but what the building will look like and what the inside is projected to look like. I think it's been very helpful, and I hope people tune in and really absorb this and understand what's behind the numbers and what they're voting on this time. And if this were to happen, there's no vote. You're just going to send us a bill, right?
That's it.
We don't get to vote on that, right? If that happens,
When it comes through to the,
No vote.
We need to go.
a no vote, yeah, it would
Still
be
need
a
to vote
vote.
on the funding.
Yeah. So if there's,
even if it was a catastrophe,
Yes.
if there's a catastrophe, we have to fix it.
you have to fix it.
We have to fix it, so we're coming to you asking whatever that bill might be.
So, in the process, if they're building that school and something happens major at the high school, the taxpayer's gonna find that money no matter what.
So if the new buildings passes, we would move the students to the middle school, and that building would be vacant
Oh,
until the,
We just relocate, because according to the contingency plan that he came,
yeah.
they came
If the
up with.
building
speed up
passes,
the process any?
you know what, it might. Timing is everything. If the high school were to fail, it's,
Take us that long to build there,
yeah. Okay, there you go.
No, I mean as
There
far
wouldn't
as
be a
that
double
school
bill.
being empty and
Yeah, there would be no.
out of your way and not have to deal with construction fences and blocking off the view and.
It's gonna take us that long to build. It's a big building. Yes, I mean, it'll make it easier.
That's what I'm saying.
It definitely would make it easier.
That's what I'm saying.
I still, though, would prefer for that not to happen. Well, hey, thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Don't forget to vote, April 29th and hopefully May 6th.
All righty. Moving right along, we have now a discussion and vote on the following annual town meeting warrant articles. So the first one is Article 7, the authorization to make a town clerk position appointed. So we'd like to start that discussion. I know it kind of bandied about the last time but due to a small number of selectmen we had here. It didn't really move too far.
Well, it's no different than us hiring and appointing the road commissioner that we just did. I think it takes a layer of the government, the position more accountable. And I won't speak on behalf of the clerk, but When we had the road commissioner, that person could do whatever he wanted to do. He wasn't accountable to the town or the selectmen, and it was kind of harder for us to deal with as a board. And I don't think it'll be any different than the town clerk position. I think it's gonna make the government one step easier, and I've said before, I definitely think we need a town manager on top of that later on down the road, and if you had one person in here every day running the show, it makes the government much easier to run. So I don't know if that was what you were looking for or not.
That's a start.
I gotta, I can't support the article. To me, it takes away from the vote of the people. The town clerk's office is probably one of the busiest offices in the town. The people should be comfortable with the person that they elect to the position. In the last umpteen years, we've always had a candidates' night where the candidates for the position will give their qualifications, and we choose the best person that has presented their qualifications. I think we've been served pretty well, I think, by the last three town clerks that we've had, which probably goes back to probably in the 1960s. And the idea of being not answerable, they're answerable to the people that elect them to office. And they're answerable to those people. If they don't perform in the job, then they'll get replaced in 3 years. I just think that I'll put my faith in the people that they're going to vote the right people. I'd rather see, what's the registered voters, probably 2,000. Let the 2,000 people that are voters make that decision rather than 5 people sitting up here.
So, let me just understand your position, if I may, for a second. Your position is you feel that the voters should decide on who the town clerk is. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you don't want the voters to decide on if they want an appointed and or elected clerk. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct, because the article says that authorized to make the town clerk a appointed position. So if they vote no, then they want it to stay as an elected position. If they vote yes, then they want to, the townspeople would support an appointed position.
Yeah, correct. But you don't want the people to vote on this article.
No, I'd like to see them vote on it, but my personal opinion is it should be no. They should, we should not support a appointed position.
Oh, so you're in favor of having this article voted on?
We'll vote on it, but my position is that I would like to see it stay the way it is, as it's voted on by the people, the town clerk's position.
Yeah.
This has come up before, it was defeated. The people at that time wanted to see it remain as an elected position, and I would support that, keeping it elected.
Well, they'll get their chance, I guess. I see it much the same as Selectmen done. I think the town has grown to the point where it's too important a position to be left to happenstance. It's a popularity vote, and if one day Tony the Pony decides, or the voters in town decides Tony the Pony is the most popular person in town, we're stuck with that for the next 1,095 days, whether we like it or not. There is no accountability, much like the road commissioner. And I have to agree with Mr. Dunn on all accounts. And if this is what the voters want, and I think they do from the people that I've talked to that come to me, they should get what they want. So I would move favorable action on this as well.
Just a question to the chairman. You talk about if it's voted by the people, it's a popularity contest. But if it's voted by the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, you don't feel that it could be a popularity contest there?
Oh, absolutely. Given past boards, I would absolutely say it could be a popularity contest. And that would be wrong. It should go to the most qualified individual, much like the town planner we have now, much like the road commissioner we have now. We had a number of good candidates come in. We interviewed them all. We got what they would, how they envisioned the role, and I think we made some excellent hires in both of those, and I don't think this board would do a disservice to the public and to the voters by electing, or by hiring Peter the plumber if he wasn't the most qualified candidate that came before us. Now, I can't speak for everybody on this board, future and past. I can only speak for myself, and it's not it won't be a popularity contest for me, just like it hasn't been for any hire we've made. It's the most qualified. It's the person that'll add the most value. It's not the friendliest person. It's not my best friend. It's not the person I've known forever. It's the most qualified. That's the way it should always be done. Yes.
The point is setting the popularity whatever you want to talk, set that aside. The bottom line is, the job would have a job description, would set out a set of criteria, we would interview them like we've interviewed the town planner, the conservation lady, the highway department guy. We sit them down, or we start with the finance, I'm sorry, not finance, but personal, yeah, help me out, Denise.
Personnel manager,
Personnel.
posting the job,
Would post the
with the
job,
requirements.
sit them down with 5 or 6 people, put the final 3 before us, and we would do what we've done in the past. So it's not gonna be, anything underhanded, like the selectmen are gonna go and get the person they want. It's gonna be the best person that qualifies for the job, and that's where I'm looking. I don't know what anyone else is doing. That's how I would go.
I
about it.
would,
Well,
I would hope so.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but what you do is, before the election, you have candidates night, where you have the candidates for the position, they give their qualifications, what they're going to do in the job, and they're putting their job description out for not 5 people, but for the 2,000 voters, or how many of the voters, and they're the ones that are will make the decision.
And I agree, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Ed, and I'm not here to fight with you. That's a good point that you made. The point that I'm gonna make is, we, in the past, have had people that have been elected, and we've tried talking to them. They don't have to come in before us. We tried, hey, we need to sit down and talk to you, can you please? Nope, don't have to come in. They don't come in. And I'm not saying, I'm not picking on anyone, I'm just saying, level is not there, because they don't have to, at the end of the day, they answer to themselves, of town people, like you said, but what town person is gonna come in and say, hey, listen, I got a complaint about the highway guy, or whatever? They don't do it, you know they won't, you know what I mean? That's the only reason I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not here to pick on anyone, or whatever, I just think
But
the
the
layer
simple
of
fact
government
is-
needs to be a little different.
Well,
The
I
simple
think that,
fact is, they could come in and complain, and there's not a darn thing we can do about it, because we have to subtract from whatever time they've been in from 101,095 days to get to the end result. Much like the road commissioner, when people call and say, my road isn't plowed, my potholes, they're as big as the Sea of Tranquility on the moon, and that's an elected position, I say, yeah, well, you've only got 632 days left, and maybe we elect a new road commission. This is the best thing that ever happened to the town. That person is now accountable 24/7, 365. If the folks complain, there's immediate action taken, because now that person is now an employee at will. They are no longer subject to their own whims, because they're under someone's supervision constantly.
The bottom line is, we just hired a highway personnel, highway superintendent. He will be back before us, and I asked when we hired him, within 30 or 60 or 90 days, I won't say what it is, he will back before us, we are gonna interview him, we are gonna talk to him, we're gonna look at what he's done, we're gonna say, okay, we like the job you're doing, we don't like the job, and if he makes it beyond that point, all well and good. You know what I'm saying? If we're not happy, then we have.
We have
that-
control.
We have control, we have the conversation.
well, again, I'd rather give the control to the registered voters, let them make the decision. And who says that the 5-member Board of Selectmen can make a better selection than the, whatever, I'll call it 2,000 voters, but I don't know what the true number is. Who says that the 5 people sitting up here, the selectmen, will do a better choice than the registered voters? And it's worked out fine. I think we should stay with, let the registers continue to elect.
I move favorable action on this. Seconded?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I make it? No, go ahead, Bill.
All those in favor?
Abstain.
All those against?
Opposed?
And one abstention. I truly respect your integrity on the issue, knowing that you do have a possible conflict of interest. It's integrity. It's something that we don't find often in too many individuals nowadays, so I thank you for that. We'll move on to Article 19, the community preservation. So this is one I know we discussed, Selectman Dunn, when you weren't here. And I had no problem with the article as long as it said gift. I don't mind taking a gift. Or taking it by eminent domain. I'm just not crazy about spending any more money to buy more land, but maybe we can get a.
So this land is the land where we talked about the meeting that I was, it was
Yeah.
$20,000?
It's 733 Salem Street rear, right.
Yeah.
And the article is to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain for open spaces, passive recreation, yada, yada, yada. And in section B, appropriate the sum of $20,000 for the acquisition of said parcels and all costs related thereto from the community preservation open space set aside fiscal 2019.
So, number one, is it 100% gift? And number two, if we're paying for it, I don't see it that it's a gift. And I've said it before, I don't like getting into a slippery slope, swapping land with developers or whatever, and I understand that it's gonna make the VC a better thing, it's gonna connect the trails and all that, but I mean, I'm not against it, but I don't want the taxpayers to go out there and say, oh, wow, we got a gift, but we paid for it. So, I'm not, that wording of it, I'm not happy with. I mean,
A gift is a gift, and a purchase is a purchase.
there you go.
And if it's a gift, I'm all for it. Take it any day. If it's a purchase, I'm not sure about it.
Did you see the plan, that there's no planning board decision on this property? Do you understand that? Did you share that?
I forwarded. I shared.
Okay, because I asked that specifically at our meeting, because the footnote suggests that there's an agreement on this property, and there's not. Just
Well-
wanted to make sure you guys were fully informed on that.
We do see the note. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
The note is not correct.
I mean,
Yes, good.
so I know this is your article, Mr. Dempsey. So
Yes.
would you like to comment on it?
Yes, so I'm not quite sure what Ms. Castronellis is talking about regarding what the planning board said or didn't say, but I think our town planner might be able to say something about it better than I can.
I just want to, Mike, did you get the email I had sent you?
Yes,
Okay.
but I don't understand what the point of it was.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, Rebecca Oldham, Town Planner. For the planning board had originally heard a preliminary subdivision for 733 Salem Street. The plan encompassed two subdivisions. There was two cul-de-sacs, one off of Salem Street and one off of Washington Street. There was discussion about a parcel of land that was closest to the wetland and whether or not the town would be purchasing it, or whether or not it should be kept as open space, or whether or not the developer might be interested in giving the property to the town. But as of the preliminary subdivision decision, there was no decision as to what would remain with the property. However, the planning board was in favor of trying to limit the impact and development of that particular property because of its proximity to Johnson's Pond and the sensitivity of the nature. But no agreement or deal was struck at that point in time. And they had just recently filed a definitive subdivision plan with the planning board, which has not even yet opened, and that is to be scheduled to open on April 23rd. And that plan is mostly dramatically different than what they had originally planned. There's no longer two cul-de-sacs, there's a hammerhead turnaround, one of the lots, roadways is to not be constructed, and they're looking to waive that. Whether or not the planning board approves that is something we need to go through in terms of process, but in terms of any negotiations or deals, there was nothing discussed other than the fact that the board would be favorable in terms of not developing that close to a wetland and/or Johnson's Pond.
So what does the developer wish to do with this? Does he wish to gift it to the town?
No, not necessarily. He may
Does
He
he wish us
may-
to purchase it?
decide to build a house there. He may decide to sell it to the town. He may decide to give it to the town. So what we're pursuing here is to be ready to potentially buy it if that's what it comes down to. And we don't know a price because 17,500 for 3.5 acres is not necessarily the going rate. So we don't know. Chances are we would have to get more money than that. So this is only what the town can use from our community preservation funds, which is approximately $5,000 per acre. So that's where that comes from.
So, Mike, and I'm always the one that's kind of the one that always tries to ask the stupid questions, I guess, but let's just go back
Sure.
to downtown Groveland when we were looking at the gas station.
Yes,
We were a little premature coming into us, right?
premature.
Well, you guys were coming in and we're gonna buy the thing, we wanted to get in for town meeting, and we didn't really have real solid numbers until we have a real solid number here, and until we have a real good written decision or a written agreement. I don't know how I could go to town meeting and ask for the money. I don't. Me, personally, I don't. I mean, because let's just say it comes back and they want 45,000 or 50,000, and you got
Yes.
20.
Well, but if that's the case, unless we can find someone else to give us the rest of the money, we can't buy it. You know, this is not a kind of thing where we are going to be required to purchase that property. If we can't come up with whatever the final number is, if there is one, that the seller wants to acquire for it, then we won't be buying it unless, like I say, we go get a state grant or we get some private grant to fill in the rest. This is, you know, unfortunately, but that's the smallest, the largest amount that we can spend on this size property and where it is.
If they get this thing done for the 17,000, whatever it is, does that open their project up to a better project? It
Well-
gets them away from wetlands, it gets their project into a better project, makes it easier flow for them to get the job done?
No, I don't know that it really is affected by that. I believe that their expenses are lower overall if they don't build another house there, because to get, looks like they are pulling away from needing to even get a permit from conservation. So that's going to save them significant amount of money.
Yes, Selectman Wood.
So, a couple of points. So it sounds like this is a contingency plan in case you are able to do.
Yes,
whatever.
I would say that's.
But it also
that's-
sounds like the project is very fluid and not well-defined because there's a new kind of design that's been placed to Rebecca relatively recent, right? So the initial plans have already been changed and it's not really defined as to what the project's going to look like at this point.
Well,
Because it still has to go through the process of approvals and everything else.
yes, but see, they've got a 3.5 acre parcel there that they're not going to build on that 3.5 acre parcel. But they could build closer to that 3.5 acre parcel. So basically, that 3.5 acre parcel, no matter what happens to the rest of it, no matter how many houses they're able to put in, no matter how many houses planning allows them to put in, or how close to that parcel that they won't be building on that parcel.
But I guess from maybe my perspective and Bill's perspective is we're a little gun shy on buying land.
Well,
Only because of some of the situations that have happened in the past, Strawberry Fields, the other property down there, where we've been told certain situations that we can use this land, and then years later, we're told that we can't do anything with it.
well, I
So,
don't, I
I'm
don't
sorry,
want
I'm
to
not
go
done-
into.
I'm not done.
Yeah,
So that, when you start talking about CPA funds and buying land and putting resources towards that type of thing, from my perspective, and I think from Bill's perspective, is that's something that we can never touch to do anything with again. And that's why I'm gun shy with anything that's related to CPA money. Because I don't want to be in a position to say, yeah, we're going to use this money that we've already taxed you on to go buy land that you can't do anything with. You're welcome. Right? I mean, it's a little sarcastic, but I don't want to get in that position where we're buying land and then all of a sudden we're giving land back because of a turtle or a bee or a bug or something. Am I wrong, Bill? Is that,
What's that? Yeah.
is that,
I'm agree. Mike, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And number one, I want you to clearly understand that I appreciate all that you do, and I'm not here, and sometimes when you and I have the conversation, it feels like I'm beating on you and I'm not, but.
he says it a lot to people.
Gee, thanks.
I'm sorry.
I-
They all think I'm the best.
I'm still here,
I
right?
hear you.
So
And
I
at the end of
haven't,
the day, we can smile.
I haven't
But
given
My question
up.
to you would be, if we didn't buy this land for the 17,
Yes.
whatever, what would happen with the town? Is it gonna hurt the town, or we're gonna flat, straight, boom, we're gonna be fine?
well,
What's the, if we didn't get this land, how is it gonna affect the town? Because I'm one that says, do we want it? Do we need it? And that's how I look at it. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
What's
I
the negative
understand.
impact?
Right.
so, just to answer Mr. Wood's question regarding using the property, all right? First of all, before I get to what you
Sure.
said. The reason why we want to buy this property, and I think we would be remiss if conservation didn't pursue this parcel, is because it's right next to VZ Park. It's next to our most valuable, most used, most useful property that we have under conservation, and I would contend under the town. As far as open space properties, I think it's the most useful one that we've got. So to say that this parcel can't be used, it, if purchased or acquired, is going to be folded into the same restrictions that are on VZ Park. So how can you use VZ Park? What's being used at VZ Park that we aren't tiptoeing around barefoot through VZ Park? No, we're not. The place is used regularly by hundreds and hundreds of people every week, where you can go for a hike there, you can go sledding, you can go canoeing on the pond, you can do fishing on the pond, plenty of things that you can do. So there's no things to say that this is some property out in the middle of nowhere, and that's not the kind of land that we want to buy. The type of places that we are pursuing now are things like this that make sense. As I say, we would be remiss if we didn't try to add this to VZ, because it gives us a buffer, a wooded buffer there between VZ Park and the fields of VZ and these houses that are going to be built. It gives us the ability to have trails through there that are going to connect around the pond to other conservation properties that we already own. And it protects Johnson's Pond, and what gets into Johnson's Pond, because of the wetlands on the property, act as a filter. So those are three good reasons from a conservation point of view, never mind the passive use recreation of this parcel that will add to VZ Park. And then finally, there are no natural heritage, no habitat issues on this 3.5 acre parcel. So this parcel is not covered by any restrictions due to habitat issues. We don't expect any habitat issues to go on with this, any restrictions from state organizations telling us we can or can't use it, or can or can't do something there that we can or can't do on VZ Park. And now to answer Bill's question about what if what do we miss if, your question was basically, if we don't get it, what's going to happen to it?
What will the town be out?
Well, we will be out trails and protection of VZ Park. I see VZ Park as our most, as I say, our most valuable property that we have. It's up to us to protect it and make sure that there's no encroachment going on, no people that are unintentionally doing something to the edges of the property. If we don't get this property, perhaps nothing will happen to it. Perhaps nothing will change. It would stay as a wooded wetland there next to VZ Park. But we don't have any control of it, so we don't really know. We don't have the ability to put trails on it. We don't have any ability to have the public access it and use it at all because it would be trespassing. So, you know, I understand the reluctance. I understand, I think it's your duties to ask these questions about an open space purchase. We've purchased a lot of open space, you know, over the last 10, 15 years, and many people might say, gee, we've got enough, why do we need any more? But I think, as I say, this small piece is a very important piece to protect what we already own, and I think we'd be remiss not to do that. So I would ask that even if you disagree with me and disagree with the, you know, we don't want to buy it, but let's go to town meeting with it and see what the people say. I don't know, you know, I don't know if the people, I'm not going to do this big campaign with signs and everything else, because I feel like this is, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Either we feel like we're protecting open space and the open space that we already got, and I think the people understand that and will vote for it without a big campaign. So, thank you.
Mike,
Yeah.
I've just got a question. At a meeting, you gave us a map of that area which showed that basically that all wetlands, unusable land. You mentioned the fact that it's a buffer for VZ Park.
Yes.
But isn't it also a buffer behind some of those houses there to prevent building behind those houses or to help protect some of the neighbors?
Yes, again, if one of the plans that was presented to us, there would be another house built directly behind three of the properties there, the last three properties on Washington Street, or the last, two of the last four properties behind them on Washington Street, there'd be a house there. So
Wouldn't that
yes.
also allow them to use that entryway off of Washington Street to?
Yes.
Well, that might impact the neighbors
Yeah,
also.
and the neighbors were against.
Oh, I heard that. I'm all set.
Quick question, I might disagree on VC Park. It seems like we spent a lot of money on Strawberry Fields as well. And during that conversation to purchase Strawberry Field, I do not recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do not recall anyone talking about any heritage issues, but we have them now. There was no talk of any natural heritage issues when all the conversations surrounding the purchase of the Mattingly, the Angelini, and more specifically the busing property, which we all commonly refer to as Strawberry Field. Is my memory, did my memory not recall that conversation, that there's a very good possibility that there might be natural heritage issues with the busing property that might require some mitigations for the turtles? Again, I don't remember everything.
Well,
Could you remind me, would you hear that?
the three reasons why we wanted to buy those properties were,
No, I know why we wanted to
It
buy
was
them.
habitat,
Well, that's not
water.
but yeah, well, hold on, you didn't get to my question. Did we specifically, was it specifically mentioned that any part of that property may be natural heritage to these specific turtles or frogs that we are now dealing with now? Was it ever mentioned
Yeah,
during?
it was mentioned because that was one of the reasons why we wanted to buy it,
To protect the turtles?
to protect the habitat, yeah,
Of the turtles?
yeah.
Not the water?
The water too. It was the water, the
The aquifer.
habitat,
Oh,
and the
I-
recreation.
I strictly recall the water, the aquifer, the recreation, but I don't recall the protection of, we purchasing it strictly, or as part of the purchase, the idea or the reason for was to protect the national heritage
Oh,
of
it
the
had
turtles
to
or
be
frogs.
because one of the grants that one of the things that we got was we got escrow money that was set aside when they put the solar field in. They had to set aside $100,000 to mitigate the turtles that they disturbed there. And so that was put in escrow. We were able to get that money and use it towards purchasing one of those parcels because that land further protected and provided a mitigation for the habitat that they took away when they built the solar field. So,
And may I just, and so the newest conservation restriction actually has nothing to do with Strawberry Field. It's the community trail. We're using Strawberry Field to mitigate it. So the impact had nothing to do with Strawberry Field. We just needed to offer up 8 acres of land somewhere, and Strawberry Field is what abuts the trail. So the most recent conservation restriction wasn't because of Strawberry Field, it was because of the community trails impact. We're using Strawberry Field to mitigate that,
The most recent one.
the most recent one. The original one was, yes, if you look back at the original town meeting article, it stated right in there that money was coming from national, it wasn't natural heritage, it was natural wildlife.
no, yeah, right. Well, there were a couple of different
Yeah.
ones, but yeah.
But it did say right in the footnotes of those articles that it was to, there would be a conservation restriction due to the wildlife there. Not the busing property, the other two.
Angelini and
Mattingly.
Mattingly.
Yeah.
The busing property is the one we call Strawberry Field,
Correct.
and that's the one we currently have some,
But there's no turtles there. We're using it to mitigate the turtles from the community trail issue.
so where it abuts the police. the
Firing range.
Firing range. That isn't,
It's within 200 feet of turtle habitat, which is the end of the property. So because it's within 200 feet, the state stated they could migrate there, so we had to mitigate for that. But it's not the property
Mike,
itself.
roughly, a raw acre, and I know you're not a real estate agent, a raw acre of land in Groveland, am I safe to say 50 grand? Roughly? For a raw acre,
A buildable lot?
buildable lot?
No, I'd say it's more like 150 to 200.
Okay, so 150, and what does this is 3.5 acres?
Right.
3.5 acres at 150, what does it bring you to? 500. Whatever, you know where I'm
Yeah.
going.
It's-
And the guy's selling it to us for 17,000, there's
Well,
gotta be
because-
a major reason, you know what I mean?
It's landlocked the way it is.
So-
And there's wetland issues on a lot of it, so you can't
Okay,
really
so-
use it as well.
All right,
You know, you
so
can't
you-
just put a house
All
in the
right,
middle of
you-
it or
you
3
got to my
houses.
point. You got to my point.
Right.
The point is, ask him for a donation.
Well,
Ask him for a donation.
We will, certainly, we will. Believe me, I would much, but, you know, as you said, we're trying to avoid any quid quo pro. We have to be careful when someone is before the planning board or conservation, you can't tell them, well, we'll let you do this if you give us this.
I got what you're saying.
You know what I
I
mean?
got what you're
So-
saying. So $1 would cure that problem. $2 would cure that problem. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be 17, it can be $1 or $2. If this is landlocked land, it's 3.5 acres, it's well, it could be sold for a lot more. We're asking for 17. I get what you're saying. You want to put a dollar amount on it to make it a legal deal, but we can make it a legal deal, $2. You know what I'm trying to say? And I know you don't want to say, okay, you know, I'm asking these guys to donate this to me, and it makes it look like what Bill's talking about, it's slippery road. I get with you. $2 would cure that problem. You get what I'm saying? That's all. And I truly think if it's what you said, landlocked and conservation land and what have you, I truly think this gentleman would probably say, you know, maybe a donation, you know what I mean?
I hope so.
Okay. Well, that's just me personally,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
no,
saying?
I-
And
I agree,
We have the conversation back and forth, and hopefully we can shake hands at the end of the day.
Yes.
That's just how I feel.
yes.
All right. Sorry.
No, listen, it's all good points. So now it comes down to whether we, as a board, move for favorable or unfavorable action on this item.
So Mike, just so you know, it will go to town meeting. It is on the warrant.
Okay.
So as the way it stands, they're going to make a recommendation on town meeting floor. They may vote it right now.
Gets it out of the way now if you want. I mean, anybody, unless anybody
I'm
has a problem.
unfavorable. I voiced it out. It's been on camera, so I'm unfavorable.
So would you like to,
Donation,
would
that's
you
what I say.
like to make a motion to that point?
I'll make a motion that we, I don't have it in front of me, let me see, here, take off my glasses. So the conservation appropriation of acquire 3.5 acres of land at 733 Salem Street, unfavorable with me, and I say, put it in as a donation, $2.
So basically, what you want to do is strike the $20,000
Yep.
out of this.
Yep,
What?
let the people vote on it for $2.
Right, but I think we got to take one thing at a time. So your motion is for the board recommends unfavorable action.
That's what I'm saying.
I think the dollar part we should leave out because that's
Yeah.
just going to muddy the water. Leave it as is. I think that's, my opinion, that would be
So just leave it the way it sits.
the best.
Leave it the way it sits, and I'm unfavorable.
So we have a motion for unfavorable. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for unfavorable. Any further discussion on the issue? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Terrific. All right. Takes care of those. Moving right along, we have votes of the board. We have minutes from the March 4th, 2019 meeting. I didn't see anything that,
Yeah, I looked through those meetings, I read through the notes, it looked to be in order. I move for passage.
I'll second that.
motion and a second. Any further discussion on the issue? You weren't here for the 18th. I think you were here for the 4th.
I was here for the 4th.
Is that right? Denise?
Yes, everybody was here on the 4th.
Everybody's here from the 4th, right? You were- So all those in favor? We have minutes from the March 18th, 2018 meeting, 19. I think everybody was here in that one, too.
They look like they're in order. And I move for passage. I'm sorry, no, forget it, skip that. I
No,
wasn't
you were here.
Yes, you were here. You were here.
Ed was not
Ed
here.
was
on the
not here.
18th. You were here.
I wasn't here.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Abstain.
And now we have a Certificate of Achievement Award for Jeremy Scanlon for attaining the rank of Eagle Scout. And I don't think he's in the audience. Too bad.
No,
Hopefully he's-
so as it normally is with these, we don't invite them here because they do a whole ceremony where they present the certificate to them. You were all invited to the ceremony, I think 2 meetings ago, I left you the invitation.
All right. Well, it's, I want to congratulate Jeremy on achieving your goal. We are proud to have had you as a member of our community and appreciate your efforts in your work at the Rebecca Nurse Homestead in Danvers. We applaud you for working to restore herbal garden beds to their historically appropriate appearance for 1770. Wow, that's an ambitious goal. In addition, you added time, appropriate herbs, and created a Three Sisters garden. We wish you the best of luck in the future, Groveland Board of Selectmen. That's pretty neat, 1770.
That a tremendous feat on his part.
I would say
It's
so.
a tough thing to do, and he should be congratulated.
I commend it, I agree. It's quite an achievement. Lucky we got folks like that in our town. I imagine we have a more formal document to sign.
Yes.
Okay.
Does someone want to make a motion to approve that certificate?
I'll make the motion that we approve the Certificate of Achievement to Jeremy Scanlon for attaining the rank of Eagle Scout.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing as there's none, all those in favor? Terrific.
And he's joining a organization with like elite people.
So, Selectmen's
Go ahead.
time. start at this end of the table, I guess. Selectman Wood, Selectman Watson, anything for selectmen time and
I don't have
reports?
anything.
Selectman Dunn?
Have we heard anything back from the boat ramp people at all, on any more meetings, or the canoeing?
Boat ramp, you mean
The
the rowing?
The rowing team, no, we're waiting on the grants right now, so we haven't had any other meetings.
Anything? Okay. The fire chief, have we got his job description out?
Yep, it's been posted.
Yep, okay, good.
Any candidates yet?
I think we've received 5 resumes. It's open until filled with preference to resumes received by May 2nd. So after May 2nd, I will compile them and give them to you, and you can decide how you want to proceed.
Great.
Okay, and, I had passed a bunch of the signed documents in with, always forget her name, that was filling in.
Caitlin.
Caitlin, did you know if she got those out?
No, I took care of them. They're all out.
They're all out, you haven't heard anything back yet? Okay, do you think that was good, what we did, and,
Sure.
I mean, you think what I passed over was good enough, or you think we should have did it differently, or?
I
I
think,
had conversations with everyone, pretty much, but, a lot of times what happens is they, like, send the paperwork over,
yep.
can I get your name? Well, just, office manager or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think I added some to it. I added all the banks that we do business with, anyone that I do business with. So I think there are other businesses in town that were not on that list, that maybe we should send it out to those as well. But the first round, I think there was 40-something letters have gone out.
Right, and the reason the ones that I sent out were the ones I talked to.
Yep.
So, I mean, okay. I asked Mike already if he had heard back from Senator Tar. He said not yet. He's gonna check into it on the Washington Street building. I think that's good for now.
Okay, Selectman Wood?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So yes, the Valley Shrew building on Washington Street, I have been in contact with Senator Tarr's office, so I owe him a call later this week to connect with them to see what the status is on options to move on that property. Also, line painting on Main Street, working with Representative Mira and Senator Tarr's office on that. I've been told that that will be completed by the end of May. We'll see if that happens. And then I was asked by the League of Women Voters for candidates nice to speak on the proposed school project as a proponent for the project. Maybe there'll be someone who wants to speak against it. So the town people can ask questions, and I can try to answer as much of that as possible, but I will not do as good a job as Dr. B did tonight. And that's it.
Terrific. As far as reports, I think Dr. B did a better job than I could of reporting what happened at the last meeting on Thursday. So I'll save my time, because I think he did a great job with his visuals and his presentation. So we'll move on to old and unfinished business. Selectman Wood?
Nothing for that.
Selectman Dunn?
The Washington Street OTPW building, storage, we needed a vote on that, didn't we?
I don't know that you've ever finalized anything with that.
Right. So, we were talking about turning that building into storage for, town hall, over files, et cetera, et cetera. I was asked to go in there and look at it and make sure that it was dry enough and what have you, and I reported back that it is. The basement is a little bit wet, but the upper floors are good. The building has a new roof, it's in pretty good shape, and I think that the building would be great to take the overflow storage out of this building and put it down there. It is heated. I think he did tell me the heating system's relatively new, and it's a dry building.
How's the moisture?
Moisture in the basement is the only place there's some moisture, but the rest of the building, and they have heat in the basement, but it's an older concrete floor, but I wouldn't make suggestions putting it, maybe like, in the basement, probably something like a truck or something that's not gonna, like paper, I wouldn't put in the basement, I'd put them up in the middle.
How about like the humidity? You need a dehumidifier in there? In the building, you probably do
I mean, I
upstairs.
think if you were to leave the heat on the second floor, during the winter months and kept it at a certain degree, I think it would stay dry enough. And obviously put the stuff in containers. I mean, I don't know what paper needs, but,
Well, you know, you leave open paper in a,
Right, but I don't,
in a area with high humidity. Usually it's not the winter that does it, it's in the summertime.
I don't think it's air conditioned, but would the stuff go over there, Denise, in cotton, like, Rubbermaid cotton sealed? You think that would, if it wasn't air conditioned in the summer months, you think that'd be a problem?
I don't know. Right now, everything's just in like boxes, like file
So down in
boxes.
the basement here, is it air conditioned?
We don't have a basement. Everything's where you can see it.
There's no
And the
place.
vaults are in the meeting rooms or in offices. That's where all of our stuff is.
Okay.
So the back meeting room, for instance, it's all in boxes. The vaults, they're all boxes.
So my question would be, putting the storage over there, would you be nervous not having, we know there's heat, would you be nervous saying there's no air conditioning in there?
I don't know.
Concrete building?
I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. I'd have to see.
I think usually
There's no HVAC running through the vaults here. I mean, you go in there, there's paper mites. I mean, it's not the best conditions here for them either.
Right. And the paper here is in the open.
Some's in the
It
open
wouldn't
and
be-
some are in the
Yeah,
vaults.
right,
Yep.
okay. Well, anyway, I was just seeing if someone wanted to move forward on this, but if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. I was just trying to help move some storage out of the building.
Is the building be totally vacated now?
He has a few more pieces he needs to get out, and that was a month ago when I talked to him. Has a couple trucks to get out of there, but 99% he could, in a day, he'd have it vacated.
I mean, I think, personally, I think it makes sense. I think if we need to address a humidity issue or an air conditioning issue, you know, you could even get one of those portable window, you know, floor air conditioners just to keep
It's all
it
insulated.
climate controlled if
Or
you needed to.
dehumidifier?
It's
all
better than what we have. I mean, it's just piled everywhere in this building. It would be a blessing to be able to clear space out and start cleaning out some of the areas here to make room for the newer files.
We need to see what it would cost to put that under camera too, like the rest of the buildings.
And we're not talking about personnel files or payroll files, we're talking about very low security kind of documents would go over there for storage.
Well, no, I would say it probably would be some of everything. Payroll records are permanent forever, so some of the older years, we'd have to move there. The older accounts payable, 1099s, things like that, those copies, we'd have to move someplace. I mean, it's just, everything we have could be considered sensitive in some, you know, obviously not planning board and things like that, but most of the records that we have that are permanent, you know, they still need to be in a secure location.
Right, at that point now, we'd need controlled access and security for that information, so it's, nobody can get in there.
Right.
Not just anybody can get in
Right.
there and access that.
And also, you could have the police department do it as one of their check-in sites. They, like, they check town hall, they check the Bagnell, add that to their list of check-in sites. You know, they're out.
Right, well, and to Ed's
They go
point,
to
if we can
VC,
put
they can go by
cameras
there and
there.
check that out.
Right, if we can put cameras there, then you could, they'd go right at dispatch and they'd keep an eye on it as well. We don't access the records often, so I don't really envision people going down there very often unless there's a request. It's really just to clear out what's here, and then start making more room.
So maybe you could check with them and see if that building is totally vacated now and completely available.
He said within 8 hours it would be vacated. So all I need to do is call him and say, we got the vote, we're gonna use it, he'll vacate it. Now, I'll make that call, I'll speak with him.
Okay.
Maybe he doesn't wanna talk to me, but. I'm not too late right now, but anyway, that's fine.
Join the club.
I'll make a call.
All right.
Sure.
Great. Do we want to make, would we like to make a motion? Is that what,
I mean, I would say you should put it on the next agenda if you're going to actually make a motion and vote to use it.
that'll give us time to find out if the building is completely
make the-
vacated? He's got
I'll
all
make
his
the call and get
stuff out.
Maybe
Trucks.
not the next one would be just before the town meeting.
That's right, so, I'll-
Probably the week after.
yeah, so I'll put it on the next real, full meeting schedule.
All right.
What's the difference between a real and a not
I
real
didn't
meeting?
mean real, I meant full meeting. The next meeting, the town meeting, you just have the warrants and
So
town
that's a
meeting
fake.
business.
That's a fake meeting.
It's a fake meeting,
Okay.
yep.
All right, so we're on me again. So I had already spoke to Denise, making sure that the Bagnell fields are up and getting running. She's working on that with Rennie, the new highway director. I spoke with Denise tonight about the pumps and the bids at the Pines. That's underway, working toward that. And the only thing I didn't get out is, how are the bathrooms coming down there? Have they been able to work on them?
Yep, so the bathrooms are, The plumbing is done fully. They were hoping to paint the exterior today, but it was too windy. Really, what we're waiting on is the partitions. They were back ordered, so there's, I think, 3 more weeks until the partitions come in. The electrician is coming in the end of the week to hook up the hand dryers and anything else that needs electrical work. Everything else is ordered and ready to be installed. It's really the partitions that we're waiting on.
Okay, so the reason I brought up, and I thought tonight a gentleman was gonna come in, because he had come by my office and he wanted to come in, and I told him, well, if you're gonna come in, you need to come in before the meeting. He said, in all fairness, I haven't been in there. He is a coach down there on Saturdays. He says that there's no AC and there's no heat, and it's gonna become a problem with mold and the smell of urine and all this other stuff. I said, listen, I don't know, I'm not gonna speak. If you wanna come into a meeting, come in. He obviously didn't show tonight, but, I mean, I guess the AC and the heat, well, wintertime, we're not using them. In AC in the summertime, I would imagine all we need to do is get the air up, move.
There are fans.
Okay,
So
all right.
we're not paying to air condition the bathrooms, but there are the fans that, you
So
know,
we
when the
have
doors are
fans to
open and
pull
lights
out.
turn on, the fans go.
Okay, so we have like a regular bathroom, we got ventilation in there, that won't be a problem. All right.
Yes, correct.
Hopefully that person.
Can't be any worse than the porta johns they have down there now.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, he had come in and he didn't come, so I just would like to make sure we don't have rumors going around and it's all set, we get fans. Okay, good. So that's it for me.
Selectman Watson?
I don't have anything.
Okay, old run finished. I guess it would fall under old. Did we ever receive a response from the town clerk regarding our request that she allow equal access to all the candidates to shadow that position? Just so they know what they're getting into, to get a feel for what's going on. Maybe it's not right for them once they see that's going on.
I did not know.
Okay, yeah. All right. Now, there's still, is there still, we still have that one person that's volunteering. Is there someone now that currently is? So,
Bill, why don't you just ask me? Sitting right here.
yeah, I'm not Stevie Wonder, thank you. It seems that some of the candidates feel that they're in an awkward position. Because they've made requests as well as we have, but been rebuffed in those requests. It's a little tough. I was hoping that that would be much more of a seamless transition regardless of who was elected. We do have a number of candidates, 5. So it would have been great. But
So-
nobody's-
Me, as a sitting board member, I would like to hear what our, and I mean, listen, you're the chairman, I'm not trying to step on your feet, but if we're trying to get the answers answered, let's try to get them answered. And I'm not trying to.
If you think it'd help, Selectman Dunn,
I definitely think that open and honesty is the best policy, so,
if
I mean, I
it's
don't wanna
open,
go step on your feet, but
if it's open and honest, I'm all for it.
I guess.
Kate Young has been volunteering in my office since the end of August, filing and scanning documents. She is not learning the job. I have in my possession a scam going on about me and about Kate. This has been verified by a lawyer, and it's ridiculous, all the things that are stated in this letter, and I have them for you, if you want to read them. Take one and pass it down, please. I've been accused of not letting anyone come in and watch what's going on. I was asked by one person, and then today by a second person. I don't recall anybody ever coming in before now that wanted to come volunteer in that office. Bill, you know I've been asking for years for volunteers, and no one, except for Kate, has come into that office to volunteer. Not with the intention that she wanted to run for town clerk, because that wasn't even open when she started coming in. Someone in town hall, I don't know who this would be, said that dog licenses were signed by Kate. No dog licenses are signed by anyone. And then counting ballots at the end of the night, they don't feel that I should be counting ballots? Do they not know that the machines count the ballots? Come on. You can see what's in that email, text message, or whatever you want to call it. It's a smear campaign. It's against me. I have done nothing wrong. Kate has done nothing wrong. But this is slander, and that's exactly what this is. So in the bottom of that, it says you can do with it what you want. I don't know what you want to do with it.
Okay, can I ask a couple quick questions?
You absolutely can.
Would you be, and listen, I haven't had a conversation with anybody on this board. And if you know me well enough, I do what I think is right.
Yeah?
Would you have a problem putting a sign on your door saying anyone that wants to come in and moonlight in this office, running for the position? Or would you make it, and you just made it publicly out in the speaker, that's one reason why I have you here.
Yeah?
I'm not trying to be a mediator, like I said, I'm fair, I don't try to cause problems.
No?
One thing personally with me, I didn't even know you were retiring, and well, for whatever reason, I didn't know. In our last meeting, the meetings we had before, and I'm one of the ones that said it, I don't know, has anyone heard or whatever. It would have been nice to hear, yep, I'm retiring or whatever, and then we would have not had all this, I think, all this hubbub, whatever, you know what I mean? Set Kate aside, set that all aside.
So when was the last time you and I had a conversation?
A long time ago.
Long time ago.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when I was a chairman of the board,
Yeah.
there was some flack that went on in the office, and I'm not a person that likes flack. So what I do is I don't get involved in it, I don't need to be involved in it, I don't need my name torn apart, etc. And since that day on, I'll be honest with you, it wore me down in politics. I don't even wanna be listen, more people in this town have heard me say, and until last week, I was gonna resign, and I'm saying it in camera. I don't need to come in here and hear all the little jitter jabber that goes on. I don't. I run a business, I control my business myself, and I wanna come in here, volunteer for the town, and do good things. When that doesn't happen, I don't wanna be here. And I don't need, you know what I'm saying, the little kitty catty stuff. So,
Absolutely I do, but don't forget, they come in and tell me stuff too.
listen, it goes both ways, and we're not here to go
right.
back and forth about who
I-
said what and where and when.
I'm not saying
No, I know,
what
I
was
know.
said.
What I'm saying is, the end of the day, we're all grown-ups.
Yeah.
We need to treat each other like grown-ups. You know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely, yeah.
And, I don't know, all I'm saying going forward is if we can somehow make sure that everyone's accessible to the thing. I haven't read this, I don't plan on reading it.
Okay.
If they can come in, like I said in the meeting, selectmen can come in here if they're running, they can sit before us and what have you. And I'm gonna be honest, Kate's mother's sitting here, I know Mrs. Young, and she knows how I am, I say it the way it is. If I was outside in the town of Groveland, and I was standing out there, and Kate was in the office working and volunteering, and I know she's volunteering, people may say, Kate's in the office and Kate has the upper hand. You know what I'm saying? But, listen, I get it. And listen, I'm not trying to get you excited, I'm not. Understand
I'm
my
not
point, Mrs.
excited,
Young, you get my
believe me.
point.
Are you asking me for my opinion?
Sure.
Okay.
Uh,
My
yeah.
opinion is, excuse me. I was asking, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My opinion is this, okay?
If you're going to make a comment, please go to the podium, state your name.
And I'm not here to start a fight,
I'm not here to start a fight either.
No.
I would like to listen to some honest conversation.
Please state your name.
My
your
name is
address.
Deborah Young. I live at 106 Center Street. And when you say you want honest conversation, let's have a little honest conversation. Because for the 3 times I have been here at a Board of Selectmen meeting, you have never given this woman any respect as using her name. The first time I flew down here that I didn't make the meeting was you're talking about something. Well, what's going on in the office? Well, what's Ann doing? Is she favoring this person? The woman is literally 3 steps out of the door. Did anybody bother to ask her to come in and explain it? No, you're all standing around making accusations. Well, what's going on? What's happening with this? Why is she just in there?
Okay.
You know, you don't do that
All
to
right.
somebody. You let somebody come in and answer
I got
the
what you're saying.
question.
I clearly got what you're saying.
That's all I need to say.
All right,
All right?
thank you. And I'm just gonna say back to you,
Okay.
because if I was able to say something that night to you, I would say it again. If the town clerk had come in and said she's going to retire and had the conversation with no, you know what I mean? And I'm not getting into your.
No, because your conversation you were having about her when she was literally 3 steps away, I find that very rude.
I didn't have a conversation about,
No, the 3 of you had a conversation about what goes on in her office, and you don't even use her name and ask her to come in and say, Ann, what's going on in your office? Because people are asking. You never gave her the respect. You know what? She's been here for 12 years. The people at Groveland voted for her 3 times. Nobody ran against her. Obviously, why? Because they love Ann. Okay?
Not doubting
Because
that
they
word.
love her. You don't even have the respect to ask her to come in here and stand up and say, Ann, what's going on in your office? We seem to have a situation. You gave her no respect. That's really what bothered me.
Okay.
You gave her no respect.
okay, so,
Okay.
we're not gonna, we don't wanna go back and forth all night. I
That's
appreciate
fine.
your
I got all-
comments.
I'm done.
I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, I'm done.
So, at any rate, all I ask is if somehow we could get that word out and back between me and you, and I'm not gonna sit here and be the godfather all night. I personally think that if the conversation came that I knew that you were retiring, or whatever, it would have been nice, that's all I'm saying. And to go back to what Mrs. Young said a minute ago, I was in the position, and I got hung up in what went on in that office, and what have you, and I can only tell you this, I was trying to make that office helpful. I was trying to help in that office. I was trying to turn around, you were out sick and what have you. All I was trying to do is get the people their dog license, et cetera, et cetera. I wasn't in there for any drama. I wasn't trying to do anything other than to carry the town people's business on. And that's all I say.
I completely understand that.
Okay.
But I was never asked for the key to get in there, which I should have been. Or at least go to my house and ask my husband for the key.
I sent the police department the other,
And what happened then? He
They-
wasn't home.
no one was home.
So you send him once, but you don't go back?
Well,
You knew I was in the hospital, Bill.
I knew you were in the hospital. I'm not gonna send them up to the your bedside, you know what I mean? I'm not. That's
No,
rude.
I-
That would be rude,
I
you know?
understand that. Also, these 5 people coming in and shadowing for one day is not going to do it. We do have 2 people that have full-time jobs. They may not be able to come in before the election. If one of those 2 win, then what do we do?
Could they come in, just have a conversation with you and say, this is what the job consists of, or whatever? That's all I'm asking.
They absolutely can, and they have.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
And it was declared at this board that I was all done on midnight the day of the election. That is not true. Mass General Law says I am here for another 7 days. Sorry. So I am here until the 13th of May. I will gladly open my door to all 5 candidates to come in and learn, not just watch, but learn. Does anyone have a problem with that?
Now, how much shadow time did you get when you,
None, nothing, zero, nada. But that's in the past, and I don't like being compared to the road commissioner.
Well,
When you asked me to come in here, I came in. So you cannot group us together as far as elected people go.
I wasn't.
I know
All right,
that you
I'm not gonna
weren't,
keep
Bill, I'm
going.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm done, thanks. I appreciate you coming up and speaking.
Yeah.
So, does this woman volunteer in your office or not volunteer in your office?
Kate?
Yes,
Yes, she does.
she volunteers in your office.
Yes, she does.
And my understanding is, we originally brought her on as at a paid position to
Not
scan
originally,
his
no.
historical
Not
documents.
originally, no. Originally, she came in as a volunteer. And then I spoke with Mike about the money that was left over from the grant to buy the scanners. So Kate was contracted to come in and scan into Laserfiche.
And from that,
That's what she got paid for. Every other thing she does in that office is volunteer.
in clerk's capacity, town clerk capacity,
She files.
would that normally be something that the town clerk would do?
Yes, sir. And she addresses envelopes, which is also something else I would do. But if you want a volunteer to come in, what do you expect her to do? Wash the rug?
I don't expect her to do anything as a volunteer, other than what's asked of her. I just wanted to know why the other candidates wouldn't be allowed the same access. I mean,
They never asked
I know that I
until
was,
now.
well, I don't know if that's true, because I know I've heard from at least two that that is not the case, that they have made verbal and written requests to shadow you. Now, whether the person has a full-time job or not, and they can or cannot, should be left to them and not to you. Wouldn't you agree? If they can make it?
I don't think I understand what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to say that you said that, well, a couple of people have full-time jobs, so then you wouldn't even be sure if they could shadow you, but
Within
wouldn't.
the 7 days after the election is what I'm saying.
But before that, there's just no hope of that.
Unless they took a sick day or a vacation day, that would be totally up to them.
But it'd be up to them.
Correct?
So if they wanted to, they could.
Sure.
So you're saying now that all the other four candidates, all five candidates,
All five.
all five can come in and shadow you for a day. We're not asking them to do anything. We're not asking them to pick up a paper, a pen, nothing. All we want them to do is allow them to shadow you just to see what a day in the life is. And that was my original request. If someone misinterpreted or read into something more than that,
And your original request went where? Not to me.
yes, it did. Go to the town clerk, or where did it go?
I wasn't here then. As far as I know, Caitlin had sent,
As
you
far
had
as I
written a
know,
letter with
Caitlin did.
Caitlin.
Caitlin.
And it didn't go to you?
From Caitlin,
From Caitlin?
yeah. Should have come from this board.
I believe it was signed by the chairman of the board.
That was the board requesting,
Not signed, but, yeah.
it wasn't Caitlin requesting it. Did you think Caitlin was requesting it?
No, I don't think Caitlin was.
Well,
requesting
then where
it.
did you
From
think?
Caitlin, I got an email that said, a board member is asking for all the people who took out papers and have returned. So why didn't that board person ask me? Nobody ever asked me,
We sent it in a formal letter,
asking for people to come in and shadow.
requesting that you allow, the board would be pleased if you would allow the five candidates to shadow you to see what was involved, the day-to-day operations. We sent a formal letter, a formal request in a form of a letter.
Right, and let's forget the five people that are running. Would this board be interested in anyone that was running for the clerk's office if someone wasn't running that's related to this board?
I would.
I would. I got to
I
be honest
honestly
with
would.
you.
I
I
look
take
you in
great
the eye and
offense at
honestly
that,
say-
because that tells me, what that tells me is you've lumped me into a category that I can look at someone. I can look at their gender, I can look at their race, I can look at their skin color, and automatically know what they are. And that's tremendously insulting to me, because I don't think that's the case. I judge every person that comes before me as an individual. There's no bias, there's no preconceived notions. Everybody's treated fairly. I don't care who you are. I don't care about anything except two things, a due and concern. Who you are is irrelevant to me. It shouldn't have a bearing on what the process is, and it's never been, as far as I'm concerned. Because once that happens, you have a breakdown in the system. Then we start making decisions based on who people are and who people know. And when that happens, decisions are based on emotion and not on sound reasoning. And that's when you make bad decisions. And I'm not going to allow myself the luxury of having friends, because I'd make bad decisions, because then emotion comes into play. If you allow emotion to come into play, you're bound to make bad decisions because you're emotionally tied to something. So no, I take great offense to that I would judge anybody based on who they are, who they know, what they look like. I'm not that type of individual. I don't care about any of that. I care about two things. What can they do for the town? Have they done a good job? If they can't, yeah, I'm going to be a critic, because they're not adding value. They're essentially stealing from us, because we're paying them. If we pay them and they're not doing a good job, I don't know how else to put it. You're cheating all of us, or they are cheating all of us, and it's not right. So I can't look at people and based on who they are, make a decision. I need to base decisions on what they can bring. Their resume speaks for themselves, not who they are.
These people are not going to have an opportunity to give you a resume because they are being elected.
That is part
It
of.
should stay that way.
That
The
is part of the
townspeople-
issue that
that
it
way.
has to be addressed,
The
because
townspeople voted you guys in, why can't they vote in the town clerk?
we come here twice a month, and
And I'm
I
at their beck
don't
and call every
believe-
single day in there.
exactly, that's why it's a very important position. It's a vital position to the town, and as the town grows, it becomes more vital. So the reason to have an appointed, a hired position is that, so that we don't get someone that, like you came in 12 years ago, with no training, no formal, you weren't allowed to, I guess the former town clerk just up and left, trained you not one iota, so you walked into that office completely blind. Is that right? Am I-
That is correct, and I
Okay.
seem to have done okay.
Right. Well, you know what? Times have changed, and I don't think the taxpayers deserve that kind of blindness anymore. I think they deserve someone that walks in that door ready and hit the ground running. Someone that has the experience, the talent, the maturity, the professionalism to walk in that and start serving the people day one.
And that's what the candidates night will show. They'll
No,
come
well,
in
he'll
with
show
their
a popularity
credentials and what
contest, you know
they
it.
do for work, and
In all
people
fairness-
will decide.
At the end of the day, the town people are gonna have their say. If they don't want this to be an appointed position,
They will
and they
say
wanna
so.
do what Ed's saying, they wanna make it elected, guess what?
It's going to
End
be
of the day, they
elected,
got the
yeah.
vote, they can do it.
Right.
That's the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
I do.
you know, in all fairness, a few years ago, I don't know, 10 years ago, we had a line cook running for the highway job. I keep talking highway only because I'm trying to use examples. You know what I mean? We had a couple of people didn't know highway. If they were elected in, the day they rolled in the door, we could have had a line cook. And that's the only, my feeling. We want to make sure we get the right person with the right criteria, the right knowledge to get down and get running. And I get what you're saying, and no, I'm not sitting here criticizing you.
I know
You've
that.
done 12 good years. You came in, you didn't know the job, and you survived it. Was it a struggle for you? Honestly, look at me and tell me, it was a struggle for you. It was
Absolutely.
absolutely a struggle for you every inch of the way. If you had the knowledge and you knew that position going in there, you know what I mean? And that's all I'm looking at.
For 2 years, I've been asking for an assistant in that office, and I got shot down every single time. This would have alleviated this problem. That assistant would have been able to do this transition. I'm not saying Kate,
I
I'm
know.
not saying Rhonda,
I know, I
Mike,
know.
anybody
Right.
that would have wanted to come in and learn the job and be an assistant, it would have solved this problem. And we wouldn't be here discussing it. But I was shot down every single time. 10 hours I asked for, $5,000 at the end of the year. Oh, we have no money. So that's why we're here.
Well, I just want to say that I wanted you to be able to say what you had to say, and that's
you.
just me personally. I hope you've been able to vent, Mrs. Young's been able to vent, and Bill was able to vent, Ed and Mike, well, Mike, obviously Mike can't, sorry, but what I'm saying is, I think it's fair. We had our conversation, we all leave here, and hopefully you have a better understanding of what went on.
Well, I hope so as well, because I just hope so.
All right.
That's all I can say.
Thank you very
for your
much.
time.
The only other thing I have on this list is some complaints from the residents regarding signs. Seems that some of our candidates are a little bit overzealous in their placement of signs. So I have received a number of calls from some residents that signs are being placed on their lawns that they did not request, they do not want. To the residents, I would suggest treat it like any other piece of trash you find in your lawn and destroy it. Don't give it back to the candidate, don't bring it to town hall, it's probably gonna end up in another place we don't want it to be. So if it ends up on your lawn, you don't want it there, you didn't request it there, my suggestion is if you found a piece of trash in your lawn, you throw it away, do the same with that. There's also been a number of complaints regarding the overzealousness of signs on town property, which I believe is a violation of the law. Am I correct in that, Denise?
They would need a permit for any sign on town
Has
property.
anyone taken out a permit for such sign?
No.
In that case, I would ask the board to go along with me to recommend that any sign found on town property while the officers are patrolling or what have you be picked off town property and as well be taken care of as, and looked at as trash and disposed of.
Well, I did receive a complaint, but unfortunately it was your sign at the end of, by the cistern at Elm Park, that was on town property.
As far as I know, it's not town property, it's my neighbor's property.
Okay, we'll take a look at the map.
Are we fine with that? Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
If there's a
Of course
signs on town property, we'll request them to just be removed and trashed.
I know people that are putting signs out for their candidates, and they're putting them on wherever they want to put them, so, I mean, if making, the candidate may not even know that they're getting their signs put where they are, but when they ride by, they should pull them off if they don't belong there, but.
On town
Anyway.
property, I can almost understand you may not know the boundaries, but on
Right.
somebody's personal property, could we please have the common human decency and the respect for your fellow residents to ask before you put the sign on their lawn? It's just, dear God, where have we come? I just don't understand.
I'll ask the highway too when they're driving around to remove them on town property.
Thank you. Finance Director's time. It's your time.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Correspondence, we have a fiscal 18 audit, financial statements and management letter. We have a fiscal 2018 annual town report. We have a notice from the town clerk as to when the new town clerk would begin, and we have an invitation to participate in Haverhill's Memorial Day ceremony.
Any information from, I'll address it to Denise or the chairman, on the town Memorial Day services?
No, I haven't heard anything, and
No,
the
maybe a little
Haverhill,
early, about
Yeah.
a month away.
the Haverhill one just showed up today, so I'm sure those will be forthcoming. Just remind everybody that next 2 weeks from yesterday is town meeting, the Bagnell School, 7 PM. That is April 29th.
Yes, please, exercise your right. It's the most precious God-given right you'll ever have in your life. Most of the people in this world don't have it. Choose to exercise it, please. Whether you vote for or against, just do something.
And actually, I will jump in a minute. Candidates' night is Wednesday, April 24th, here in this room. The following night, Thursday, April 25th, Dr. Bartholomew is doing another school forum here in this room for anyone that wants to attend or would like some more information. So there are some opportunities to hear about the ballot questions at candidates' night or from him before you go to the polls on May 6th.
Just the 24th is the candidate night at 7 PM?
Yes, correct.
On the Thursday, Wednesday.
Oh,
Motion to adjourn at 9:20?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yep.
Adjourn.